stiff arms the crap out of Drake Kirkpatrick right there.
Going down again. Left cue. Glenn Williams.
Fighting through contact, fighting through offensive line, being double team, multiple moves stacked into one, just a play of pure domination. This is actual film, this is actual football talk. It's a football show, we're supposed to talk football, not storylines. And hello, you are listening to the 12th, I think, edition of Blewett's Blitz. I'm really never sure what episode it is until I pull up my little notes. But today we have Kyle Smith on. Like I said, we're going to be doing a mailbag. We have about 20-ish questions. We're going to recap some of the Jets offseason and Kyle's thoughts on them. If you don't know his face, it's kind of his fault. He ditched podcasting, but he's a really super knowledgeable fan of the Jets, good friend of mine. And Kyle, what's up? It's been probably about 10 months-ish since you've podcasted. So how you doing?
Was it 10 months? That sounds about right. It was about June, I think, when we did the top 25 players on the Jets.
Which we are doing again this year. I always love doing that show. It's always a fun discussion. But
okay.
How's everything going?
And then we did Leo and Jordan Jenkins like a month after that or whatever. So maybe it's not. Maybe it's been 9 months. I'm doing pretty good. All things considered. I mean, obviously, it's a pretty hard time for most people. Thankfully, both my wife and myself can do work from home. Being a teacher, I'm still kind of able to. I mean, it's not the same as being in the classroom, but it's not like I have to file for unemployment or anything like that, like so many people do. And those of you that are going through that, I feel for you as much as I can. I know that's really, really tough. So, I mean, all things considered, it's pretty good. It's tough hearing about people who or people who have loved ones who have passed away from this. I mean, it's definitely tough, but definitely looking forward to more exciting, positive things. Hopefully there's a lot of positive news coming with this Jets draft. Hopefully they do justice, and hopefully they can hit on some mid to later round picks for a change.
What does that mean? I don't know what that means, Kyle.
I mean, every year, man, we just did 4th and 5th rounds, just these garbage picks, and we always pick these older players, Dylan Donahue's and whatever, Ardarius Stewart as a 3rd round pick.
Chad Hansen, the new Eric Decker, because he's white and can run decent routes. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, right.
But the housekeeping as usual. Joe RB31. I put up all my reviews. I put up my big board there. I said I was going to do it. I don't know if I did it last show, but big board for me personally. Wills 1, Judy 2, Lamb 3, Worse 4. Thomas.
I had a question about that, if you don't mind me interjecting already.
Oh, no, go ahead. Right in the middle of my listing, Kyle.
Pull it up on the screen, why don't you? I mean, shoot.
Oh, okay.
So,
I can do that.
So I was reading that the other day, and I was kind of shocked because it made it seem to me like you would choose one of the tackles first, one of the top 4 tackles, considering that any of them are there. But when I read this, I'm saying, okay, so if everybody but Wills is on the board for the Jets, you're taking Judy. You're going to take Judy before Wirfs, because that's how I understood it from reading that. No,
this is me personally. If this is more okay, all things being equal. You have, you don't have a need at tackle. You don't have a need at receiver, let's say, and you're just taking the best player available. So this is just my best player. That's why I have the Jets list, who I think is the best for the Jets, and what I would do if I were the Jets list on the side right here.
Okay, because when I saw Jets, I thought that meant what you think the Jets' big board is based on what you know about their scheme and whatever you're reading and stuff. That's how I understood it. I mean, maybe This is where you get into all of my you can see all my notes that I have on my computer now. People can't really usually see. Look at all these notes from that's receiver stuff. Oh man. So fun. But yeah, that's my board. I just pulled it up right there, but it doesn't really I think I talked about it last show anyway. It should be fun, the draft. It was funny because I finished all the draft stuff, and the fiance was like, "Oh, does that mean you're done for a couple of days?" A day after I finished, I did 20. I think it was 21 games combined of Van Roten, Desir, and Peanut, Patrick Unuwasar, whatever the hell his name is. So it never ends, but I got all that done so I can get that out to the listeners of the show, the viewers of this show, after the draft, because after the draft I'm having another 7-8 guys to do. But as per usual, YouTube. And by the way, you should hype the people up a little bit too, because you got your hands on some all 22 films. So You're going to be able to do.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, whoever the Jets draft, I should be able to watch them all 22, which I got from Kyle. Thank you, Kyle. At least hopefully it matches up with whoever we get. I have the all 22, but
Trust me, I was going. Let's say they take Wirfs for example. You're going to be able to find a couple games with Wirfs, or if they draft Wills, you're going to be able to get a couple games of Wills because I checked to see if you could find some of that because like there's LSU versus Alabama. So anyway.
Yeah, Kyle knows it's a little bit difficult to watch these players on broadcast. So all 22 for a guy who likes to break down film is a very big surprise for me. But that should be fun once the Jets draft whoever they're going to draft. But as per usual, subscribe on YouTube, like the videos, podcast reviews. We have T-shirts now. We have like a Blewett Blitz T-shirt. We have a Cool Your Jets T-shirt. We have a President Mall Sam Darnold presidential campaign type T-shirt. We have a Jets X Factor T-shirt. We have a Joe Douglas T-shirt. Once we get to 50, I'm going to select a random person for a free subscription. 100, I'll give away 2 T-shirts. We'll do 2 T-shirts to 2 random people who have done reviews before. So just keep throwing those, and obviously it's not even for that stuff. Really, it's not. Oh my God, I want a T-shirt so bad, but it helps me a lot more than people realize. The subscriptions, the the likes, the shares of it to their friends, whatever it may be. The ratings on podcasts is huge. So please do that. Draft is in 3 days. I just said it to Kyle. I think it's if I can do my math correctly, 46, 70. We have about 74 hours. No, 73 hours and 1 minute from right now is the NFL drafts that we're recording this. So, but like I said, today we're going to do off-season roundup type deal, at least so far. And then we're going to do a mailbag. So Kyle, unless you have anything else to say, let's get into the mailbag.
Yeah, let's do it.
Or not the mailbag, sorry, the off season. And we're just going to start kind of like I did with Marcus Coleman. We're just going to start from the offense and the offensive line at first. What are your thoughts so far on the offensive line, what the Jets have done there? Obviously not bringing back Beachum, bringing in Fant, bringing in Van Roten, bringing in McGovern, bringing in Edoga. We could go section by section. I don't have to do that all at one time. But overall, what are your thoughts on the offensive line?
I mean, it's hard to be super optimistic about it. I mean, I can hold a little bit of optimism. But at the end of the day, I mean, they added a couple stopgap guys and whatever. And McGovern, I think, is a piece that you can really work with, and he'll probably be here for the duration of his contract. Would we re-sign guys like Van Roten? Is Fant going to make it to the second and third years of his deal? I don't know. I haven't really watched much Fant film, and I'm waiting for you to break him down. Same thing with Van Roten. I did watch your McGovern breakdown. What I read about Fant is, and this seems like a logical reason why they'd sign him, is, yeah, he's super athletic, and people have seen the basketball highlights and stuff, is if you look at Adam Gase, take, for example, him in Miami when Jay Ajayi rushed for 1,400 yards or whatever it was, 1,300 yards. Great season, his only really good season in the NFL. It's constant outside zone from Adam Gase, constant outside zone. And Fant, being that he's really athletic, you want a guy who can move out in space. So even though I heard his pass protection is very shoddy at times, it seems like that's probably a big reason why they signed him. And the Jets, even more so than the passing game, pass protection, the running game was absolute dog shit last year.
Yeah.
I mean, Le'Veon Bell, his biggest rushing game was 87 yards, right, against the Ravens?
Something like that. I think it was either the Ravens or like the Patriots where he had like 70, 80 yards, and it was like a huge game for him.
I think it was the Ravens. And I mean, and even worse, 3.1 yards per carry, which was like lowest in the league for guys who rushed X amount of times. I mean, literally, like you put on, I know people are trying to clown Le'Veon Bell. Oh, he signed with the Jets and like, he shouldn't have took off a year because now he's washed up. No, the dude is not washed up. He's still a really, really good player. Yep. The dude had nowhere to run. Nowhere. But when there was a little bit of a hole, he would hit it. He would bend around. He would break tackles. I mean, there were a couple things that, like he would drop a ball here or there, but I mean, like this offensive line for years has been terrible. I don't think over the last 3 years there's been if you combine 3 years, I don't think there's been a worse offensive line in the league. And I can't say that I watched all of them super closely or whatever, but just watching how bad the Jets have been over that duration, I can't think of there could possibly be one. I mean, they don't have even an average starter at any 5 of the positions on the offensive line. Now with McGovern, hopefully you got an above average guy.
Yeah.
What I do like is that they kind of took, in a sense, the Bills approach, where the Bills kind of like Mitch Morse was a big signing for them this past offseason. I mean, he signed he's getting like $11 million something a year as a center. But they signed several people, and with offensive line, you always get banged up. I mean, you're banging into 300-pound guys all the time. You're falling over people. You have people stepping on your legs and stuff. You have running backs falling on the back of your leg and potentially breaking your leg. Offensive linemen get injured all the time, so it's good to have depth at the offensive line, because if your backup is atrocious, a train wreck, it's going to wreck your team. So I like that they brought in several people, but I mean, at this point, if they don't land a tackle at pick 11, I'm not very optimistic, because, and I know we're kind of trending into other topics. Sam Darnold, I do not want to wreck the kid, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why the people who are saying, they much rather have a receiver at 11, I don't get it, because, listen, the receivers could be great, but if you don't have 3 seconds to throw the ball, you're screwed. And you said with the offensive line, and just based on the stats, which I don't like going on stats, Sam Darnold had the least amount of time to throw the ball in the NFL from snap to getting contacted, and Le'Veon Bell had basically the smallest holes to run through. He got contact behind the line of scrimmage, and that could be a little bit obviously of his running style, and that was one of my concerns when we signed him. I was saying, I think I said on Play Like a Judge, I'm not sure if I said it here, but his running style behind a bad offensive line wouldn't really work, because he needs to really bang the holes when they're open, and he's not that type of running back. So it was a little bit concerning, but Le'Veon Bell is still a good player. In terms of like the bodies thing, I agree with that, because you're looking at the offensive line, especially Van Roten has added injury history, Brian Winters injury history, Alex Lewis injury history. So they're bringing in a bunch of bodies now with Fant and Adoga. Like you said, if they don't get a tackle 11, having those 2 guys as your lockdown starters as your left and right side is a concern. But if they bring in, Wills, Wirfs, Becton, whoever it is, and then that guy starts at either left tackle or right tackle, and then you have Fant and Adoga, competing for a job, I feel much better about that. So the offensive line might have went from like 32nd in the league right now last year to maybe 25. Like maybe it's a little bit step up, because Beachum, in my opinion,
I mean, a lot of.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I mean, maybe, yeah, considering if they draft someone there, and hopefully they draft several linemen. Hopefully it's not just a guy at 11, and then hopefully we can get a guy in the second. I heard it's not a really very very good offensive line class, especially when talking about the interior. So
yeah, there's some guys like you, and like I said, I'm not going to give many strong opinions on guys I don't really know, because I think that's I think it's irresponsible to do that. Because I don't agree with a lot of the big names and their opinions on players on social media. So why should I agree with their opinion on a breakdown of a player, whatever, if they're even break down that player? That's a story for a different day. So I heard there's some interior guys, Tyler Biadiz, whatever, but he has injury problems. There's a tackle from whatever school he's from, Matthew Pert, who's moving to guard. So but I agree with you. In the first 4 or 5 rounds, I want tackle at 11. And then in the first 5 rounds, I want an interior guy. Hopefully in the top 4 rounds, I want another interior guy who can compete with all the other guys they have, because they need bodies. Offensive line is the second most important thing on the offense, minus the quarterback. So Sam Darnold needs time to throw the ball. And he has some like weapons. It's like the Jets don't have no weapons. Let's just say that. Like they have – listen, if they scheme well, if they have protection, you have Bell. You have Herndon, who you think he can, or you hope he could stay healthy. You have Crowder, who's a good route runner. I think if you did watch the Perryman review, if you haven't, go back and watch that. He's not a scrub at this point. So
no, he's not.
He's not a scrub for sure. So you add some talent. And I'm not saying to not draft wide receivers. I'm expecting 2 wide receivers, hopefully in those first 4 rounds either. Listen, if the Jets have their first 5 picks in the top 4 rounds be offensive line, receiver, interior offensive line, receiver, like I don't care. Like they need it. So it's going to be interesting with the offensive line. But yeah, it's Conklin. Would you like to sign him? Sure. I didn't want to pay him that $16-17 million I thought he was going to get, but for what he got, I think he's worth it. Glasgow, you'd like to see him sign, and maybe even because, other than Fant, you'd like to see even maybe Beachum instead of him. But I think they took a step in the right direction, a little bit in the right direction, because I think you kind of replaced, and this is not obviously direct replacement because they don't play the same position. But I think the difference in play between a guy like Khalil or Jonathan Harrison to McGovern is going to be greater than it's going to be from Fant or Doga to Beecham, because I thought Beecham was a below average tackle. So I think they took a step in a slightly right direction, adding more bodies and things like that, but it's still, I would say, a bottom 10 unit. So
Yeah. And just thinking about Bell and the offensive line, like one thing that popped in my mind when you were just talking right now is if you noticed how he changed his running style. Like you were talking about how he's not going to really be a good fit with this Jets offensive line because they're so bad, because he does wait for a hole to pop open. And with Pittsburgh, they had such a good line that eventually holes did open. But when there's no hole that ever opens, if you're just staying back there, not totally flat-footed or whatever, but semi-flat-footed, kind of waiting, not having momentum, so to speak.
Yeah,
it's not conducive to positive rushing gains or whatever. But towards the end of the season, he changed his running style. He wasn't being super patient anymore because he realized nothing's going to open. I've been running behind these guys for a while now. I don't know if you agree with me, but that's what I saw.
No, I agree with that. And the end of the season, as you know, I took a little bit of a hiatus, so I was not watching as closely. But I agree. When a hole is open, he was trying to just put his head down and run through that hole as quick as he could, just to get those 2-3 yards, whatever it may be. But they have some talent. Like, it's not like I think the misconception about the Jets, and this is not being a homer, it's like me legitimately, obviously I watch a lot of film, is with a healthy team last year, I think it's not a playoff team, but maybe they win 8-9 games. If you had a Mosley, if you had Williamson, if you had Herndon, just those three guys, I think could be a different team. So because they're all big.
Could you beat the Browns? Could you beat the Browns week 2 if you have?
You could beat the Browns. The Eagles game. The Eagles weren't impressive to me at all when they played them. There's games.
Oh my God, Falk was so.
The Bills game, just the Bills game. And that's the problem. And I know you're going to agree with me on this. I know we both have issues with Adam Gase, but oh my God, and listen, he has disappointed. But to think he could do anything with Luke Falk, who should be on a practice squad, with the worst offensive line in the league, is laughable. It's laughable. Yeah, you can't do it.
Because Luke Falk's biggest problem, I mean, his junior year or whatever, people were saying he could be like a second-round pick or whatever. But one of the biggest reasons why he ultimately slid to the 5th or 6th round whenever he was drafted is because a lot of people criticized him for this dude just withers in the pocket. When he has pressure, the dude, he can't perform. And with that bad offensive line, he was constantly under pressure. And, he either just take the sack, put his head down, or, he would just throw to the check down when, there could be a bigger gain out there. And
there's 7-8 guys in the box every play.
Yeah. Give kudos to Darnold a little bit because notice how much better the Jets played as an offensive unit when it was Darnold versus Simeon or Falk, because Darnold is and when I was watching, I can't remember what game it was Archuleta, Adam Archuleta, who was doing the color commentating for Fox or whatever it was, and he did the Jets for back-to-back weeks, and both times he said Sam Darnold withers under pressure. Now, I watched a lot of Darnold's college film. That's not something I saw at all, and even reading from respected scouts like Jeremiah and stuff, that was not a knock on Darnold either. This is the first guy I ever heard him say that. One of Darnold's positive attributes is he can throw from muddy pockets. And
he's almost better at it.
This is what's pissing me off, though, about Darnold. And it's a little bit Darnold, and but it's more so what we've done, what mostly Mike Maccagnan's fault did to put this guy in a terrible position is Darnold's been relying on that too much. I mean, I feel like to a certain extent, when you get hit all the time, it's natural that a quarterback is going to start to feel the pressure more, and it's going to affect the way that he plays. That'll even happen to Tom Brady, even though Brady is so good in the pocket. But Darnold,
watch him play the Broncos. Well, 2015, he started doing that.
Oh yeah, he got hit. Brady got hit like 20-something times in that game.
Yeah,
AFC Championship game. Yeah, that was a great game. Anyway,
that's a great game.
But even Brady, like late in the game, like it did affect him, but he was still throwing dimes late in the game. Anyway, what I'm saying is sometimes Darnold would rely on his ability to throw in a muddy pocket, and he's not stepping into his throws, even though he can sometimes. And even though he can do it, and that is a special trait that he has. That's one of the reasons why people think he can. That's one of the reasons why you think he can be a great quarterback. But it's not ideal for throwing the football. You will have inaccurate throws from time to time when you don't have
Yeah.
proper mechanics. So sometimes he would let balls get away from him for that reason. Like I was watching, I think it was the Jaguars game. I think it was Robbie Anderson ran a simple out route. Darnold did not step into the throw, and he hangs the ball inside, and it gets picked off. There's no way that ball should have been picked off. Robbie had the corner beat. If the ball's thrown good, it's not getting picked off. Anyway, but I mean, listen, the kid's under pressure all the time. You can imagine why he's not stepping into his throws. But because he can at least throw like that sometimes, he was worlds better than those other quarterbacks.
Yeah, for
Simeon
sure.
And Falk.
For sure. And that's another thing, like, and I don't really want you to comment on it, but people say, oh, well, they didn't, and during the season, hopefully they could have brought in a different guy, but, oh, they didn't bring up a backup quarterback last year. Trevor Simeon, I thought, was a pretty good backup option. He got hurt, so it's not like people trash Douglas for that, but it is what it is. In terms of the line, and I think people overall, if they do watch this show, I think you're going to be a little bit more encouraged with Fant than you're hearing from other people. I'm not saying he's a decent starter or anything like that, but I'm going to tell you, the first 20 plays I'm going to put up of his film is going to be gross. It's ugly. It's really ugly. But the step he made from 2018 late in the season to mid-season 2019 to the playoffs, end of the season and 2019 was truly impressive. So if he can build on that, it's obviously, going to work out or decently for the Jets. And now maybe they give him a little bit too big of a contract, but I think that Douglas is kind of like hedging his bets. Okay, if we don't get a tackle, we need somebody.
You know what thought just came into my mind, and I never thought about it previously? Mm-hmm. Jason Peters was drafted he wasn't drafted. He was undrafted as a tight end, right? Now, Jason Peters, he spent his first 4 years with the Bills or whatever. Even it wasn't really a great starter or anything like that. Mm-hmm. He was pretty good. Went to the Eagles, and Peters is like 38, 39 now. He's had his best years as an older player, right? Peters was extremely athletic. Again, tight end. Fant, really athletic, right? He was a basketball player. Douglas was in Philly with Jason Peters. I don't know. Maybe he sees a little bit of that in him, like, a little older player, but, not been playing the position.
I think he's 20. I think he's 29. So
Fant, he was 28 when the Jets signed him. So I don't know. I mean, so that's not old or anything like that, but I guess he really is seeing that upside, though. Like, hey, listen, I've seen it happen before. A guy's dedicated to his craft. I mean, you're seeing some traits on film. Some guys just have things you can't teach to whatever. So I don't know. Hopefully it works out for the Jets, though. I know you hate Pro Football Focus grading, and as do I. I think they're especially bad when it comes to offensive line grading. I was just for craps and giggles, I was looking at player grades, and they actually had Brandon Shell rated higher than George Fant.
No,
I mean, I'm serious. They did.
Yeah, I don't care about Pro Football Focus. I don't care about them.
I know that. No, I'm not. This is not me criticizing George Fant. This is saying let the tape really dictate versus whatever analytics you read. That's a big reason why people are clowning the Fant signing, because they quickly Googled what the Pro Football Focus grade
George Fant
was.
PFF. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, you'll see, and especially for more of a zone scheme, like you said, Pollock is more of a zone coach. Gase likes to run more zone. He'll definitely be a fit. Like if he was in a power scheme, I'd definitely be more concerned. But he has a lot of traits, and I think his senior year of college, he played tight end or something like that. I know he's relatively new to the position. He's only been playing tackle for like 4 or 5 years in football, which is ridiculous. Like that's not a lot of time at all to be in the NFL. And he has athleticism. He's been a backup. He comes in on heavy sets. And again, I'll trash guys who I don't think are good. I think the Peanut signing, I think he's okay, but he should not be a starter. He's not good. I watched his film. He's not good. The Desir signing, I think he's okay, but he's like Morris Claiborne 2017 type vibes to me. Like he's not very good either. George Fant, I think, is better than people think he is. That's just my opinion. So, and I'll show that. But moving on to wide receiver, Perryman. What do you think about Perryman signing and Robbie Anderson going? In my opinion, which you watched the show, I thought they should have paid Robbie Anderson for what he got. Perryman made it sting a little bit less. I would still rather have Robbie over Perryman. And that was kind of but this is my thing. People think it's Madden. Okay, well, if the Panthers offered, let's just say it was $10 million, $12 million the first year, but 2 years, $10 million. Oh, the Jets offered 11, they would have had him. Who says that? What if the Jets were offering him $12 million, but he wanted to go play for his old head coach and Matt Rule? What if he wanted to leave the Jets? Like, there's a bunch of things that go into that. It's not as simple as Madden, so we don't know what happened behind the scenes. I don't like that Robbie Anderson left, but I think Perriman's a little bit underrated too.
Yeah, so I'll first touch on Robbie and then Perriman. First thought that pops to my mind is Robbie might think that this is a great pairing for him because he's with his old college coach.
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater.
I don't think it's good for him because I really like Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater has a bad deep ball. I'm not even saying not good. It's bad.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have a good deep ball. That's Robbie's game, is the deep ball. This is not a good career move for Robbie Anderson in my mind. Robbie took the 2-year deal thinking, when I'm 28, I'll get a bigger payday. I don't think he's going to have the stats to get the payday he's hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it was a great move for Robbie. But, yeah, who knows what the Jets offered behind the scenes? Who really knows?
There's reports, and people take reports as gold. And by the way, just because – and sorry, I know you're into Perriman, but with Fant too, I didn't mention that. You said 28 years old. 28 years old for a tackle who hasn't been playing football for a while is really not that old. You're just talking about Jason Peters, who's 38, who's still, I would say, a top 15 tackle, top 10 tackle in the league.
Definitely.
So it's not like he's a corner you're signing at 28 years old. He could still progress, in my opinion. So, but continue.
Yeah. So, and then going to Perriman, and by the way, I don't know if this was by design. I don't know if I'm supposed to say this or not, but going through your YouTube channel, the only film review that is public to everyone, without the paywall, is the Perriman. The whole thing is there. So I don't know if you guys did that on purpose or whatever, but anyone who wants to watch, like, there's a lot of Perriman plays on there.
Did it on purpose.
Okay. You went through a lot of Perriman plays. And when I came out, I was optimistic. One of the biggest things why that people were clowning Perriman for, I heard Mel Kiper the night that he was drafted say, "Oh, his father, Brett Perriman, was more of a reliable receiver. He had more sure hands. This kid needs to work on, his concentration drops or whatever." And if you put on Perriman's college tape, he had a lot of concentration drops, a lot of drop balls. But I thought he had relatively strong hands when I watched your review. You agree with me?
For sure. Yeah. His hands, his athletic ability, his size of like 6'1", 6'2", 215, plus his 40 time, which he still shows, is those traits are all there. Really strong hands, will box you out. All that stuff is there. It's the route running that needs work and him avoiding injuries. But overall, I was impressed. I think that Marcus agreed with me with a lot of what I was saying. We didn't really disagree with a lot of things. But then you hear fans on these big websites. I'm not going to call any websites, even though maybe I should. Oh, well, he's just another scrub. Oh, he's a camp body. Oh, he's going to get cut. That's not true. Watch the film does not lie, and I like all the talk show, hot topic type stuff. But film never lies. The film's going to prove to you some things. Even though Van Roten, Adoga was better than people think he was last year as a right tackle, not as a left tackle. But the thing with and I don't even know where I was going with that, but
we're still talking about Perriman getting better.
Whatever. Yeah, he could still get better. I don't know where I was going to transition to some of the offensive line, but
what I'm saying about Perriman, though, as far as I can see, he's on a constant trajectory up. He's gotten better every year. And because he is 215 versus Robbie Anderson's, they list him at 190, but we both don't think he's 190.
I'll bet my life savings on he's not 190.
Okay, let's just say he is, which we know he's not. That's a 25-pound difference, and Perriman's pretty thick too for his size. So Perriman is better.
Is he thick? THICC or CK?
Whichever one is not the bad one.
Okay, continue.
Anyway, so he's better. He's a better yak guy. Robbie Anderson has like pretty much no yak ability. One of the most frustrating things watching over the years is them giving reverses to Robbie Anderson. Yeah, he's fast. But
people say that on Twitter. Why not get Robbie Anderson on bubble screens more? I'm like, what? Like, what are you watching?
First of all, he doesn't have good vision when he's running. Second of all, the dude, you could bring him down with an arm tackle with one arm.
Mm-hmm.
He goes down that easily. And then what else was I going to say about Perriman? Yeah, like his route running and his releases, he loves that skip release. Right?
Yeah. Yes, the hop step.
So he doesn't really have a wide variety of releases, and his route running could still use work. But he seems like he's dedicated to his craft, and he is getting better. So his upside is higher than that of Robbie Anderson's. I'm not saying that he's going to be better. I'm not saying that at all.
His physical traits, for sure. Yeah.
Even though he has a faster 40 time than Robbie Anderson, he's not a better deep ball catcher either.
No. Well, and that's what to say about Adoga. Just came back in my mind. people just view every situation as linear. Like, remember last year, and even I was probably guilty of like, yeah, get rid of Shepard. Look at what Shepard and Fadokasi did last year. So like, can Adoga improve? Can Fan improve? Can Perryman continue? And this is the biggest thing I hear about Perryman too is, oh, well, he was heavily targeted those last 5 weeks, and he was just the benefactor of that. I showed on that review that he was getting open when he was playing in weeks 1 through 15 or whatever, 13, 12, whatever. So, and how many times that, and you watched the whole thing, Kyle, I'm assuming, how many times did Winston miss him wide open for a touchdown? Like, he could have had a lot more plays.
There was at least 3 that I can remember.
That would have been like 50 plus yard touchdowns. So
yes. Now he did get lucky on that touchdown against the Seahawks where the ball kind of like
got deflected up. Hey, but he tracked the ball. There's a lot of guys who would put their head down at that point and give up. So there's pluses and negatives to that, but we'll continue on, I guess, to quarterback. For
$6 million, maximum $8 million. I'm cool with the Perriman signing. I'm glad they did it.
For sure. There's a body. I think he's like, okay, he's a decent like number three role. I'm saying like, okay, he's not going to get as many targets as Crowder or as whoever else they bring in maybe, but as a role player, I think he's good. They just need to bring in another couple of like 2 guys, 3 guys, but they're not going to have a number 1 guy. I don't think coming into next year, but I think with a decent offensive line and a number of role players at receiver, you can get by. Quarterback, I put backup here. I don't know why I want to talk about quarterback backup. We talked about it a little bit. I'm not sure if you're recording or before it, but with Simeon, I think they brought in some guys last year. I think bringing back Simeon as a backup would be honestly a good option. When he was starting, he was like 14-13 as a starter with the Broncos. So I think he's a good backup quarterback. It's unfortunate that like in his second quarter playing as a backup, he got his leg snapped or whatever it was by
Dirty Myles Garrett.
Yeah, Myles Garrett, who's one of the dirtiest players in the NFL apparently now. But any thoughts on the quarterback backup? Who should they should bring in? Do you want Simeon back, et cetera, et cetera? Because I think they just re-sign Fales or whoever it was.
They did. They did resign good old David Fales, who's been following Adam Gase for a while now. He was with him in Chicago, then Miami, and now with the Jets. Multiple contracts with the Jets. Matt Moore's still out there, right? I watched a good amount of Matt Moore led the Dolphins to the playoffs.
He did well with the Chiefs last year too when Patty Mahomes went down.
Yeah, Matt Moore, you could do a lot worse than him as your backup quarterback. You figured the Chiefs are probably not going to want to give him a hefty contract, being that they're possibly could give Mahomes a contract this offseason. So you can't tie too much money up into the quarterback position. I would look into exploring that market because I don't want to put David Fales in there.
Yeah.
You saw what happens last year when you have really, 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 really terrible quarterback play. The Jets had no shot in those games when Falk was starting.
That was the worst quarterback play I've ever seen. Minus watching Christian Hackenberg in the preseason, which I know you love that pick. Kidding, obviously. Transitioning to the defense, they don't really need to do much. There's not much at tight end. They have Griffin, they have Herndon, who you're hoping is help. They have Wesco, who's apparently a bust already, being a 4th or 5th round pick. Who I think he'll progress. Hopefully, did better.
Got better as the season went on.
Yeah, got better as a blocker down the line. Now moving to the defense, I had somebody who like tagged me. He's like a fan from another team. He's like, "Oh yeah, I think the Jets take an interior defensive lineman in the first round," but which is crazy. Talking about the defensive line, I think they're set there. Obviously with Fadokasi, with Shepard, with McClendon, who is one of the most underrated players I think in the league. He's an absolute monster.
You had him too low on your rankings last year when we did the top 25 show. You had him like 10 or something like that.
Yeah, he's going to be top he's going to be top 6 I think this year or close to it. He's really freaking good.
I know.
Henry Anderson, I wish he can get out of that contract. He didn't really do much for the Jets last season.
I was just thinking that today too.
But overall thoughts on the defensive line. Listen, they were number 2, I think, in terms of rushing defenses last year. They're set there. They don't have to make any moves, and if they do, people will probably go pretty crazy. And obviously, I didn't mention Quinn Williams. We spoke about it before, and I wanted to bring this up to light because Michael Nania, again of Jets X Factor, the best Jets website out there. To be a little bit of a prick, but I stand by that. He looked back at his film, and he has him stunting on 41% of his snaps last year, which is a lot. So they had Quinn Williams eating up space for other guys to get free to the quarterback, which, yeah, you want Quinn Williams to be in that role because you want him to be able to win one-on-ones. I don't know exactly why they were doing that, but he was a guy at Bama who was a one-gap penetrator guy who can get to the quarterback after defeating the guy's hands. But when he's having to hold up multiple guys to free up other guys, it's not necessarily the best role in terms of producing statistically. But there were games where he was, he dominated Lane Johnson at times. There was a couple of plays where he would ragdoll Zach Martin or Travis Frederick. So like, don't give up on Quinn Williams. And the biggest, and you don't have to look to anywhere else but the Jets last year. And I said it before, how many people wanted to give up on Nathan Shepard and Fatukasi? Fatukasi was dominant last year. Fatukasi is he's good. He is good. Now look at Quinn Williams coming into his second year. So I think it's foolish to give up on this kid. I would still pick him where they picked him. So
yeah, and I don't quite get why, but there are certain positions that it really takes. You see a really big jump from rookie year to second year, and I don't quite get why interior defensive line is that way, because to me, obviously it makes sense with quarterback and stuff because they're responsible for reading everything and getting everybody in position and stuff. I don't quite get why that's the case with defensive line, but just looking at some of the best defensive linemen in the league, like Chris Jones, he wasn't super impactful his rookie year or whatever.
Geno Atkins.
Yeah, right. And you just mentioned a guy on our own team, and which is interesting because Leonard Williams' best year was his rookie year, probably. But I guess it's because he had other beasts. Sheldon had a beast year, and so did Wilkerson. But anyway, that's a different story. But Fatukasi wasn't super impactful his rookie year, but he was absolutely dominant last year. So, don't give up on Quinn and Williams. That's why, 95. You can't even really see it in the camera, but whatever. I was disappointed last year. I was expecting much bigger things, but I mean, it's interesting that you say those statistics to me because when you said it to me, and we actually talked about this before we got on and started recording, that matches up with what my eyes saw. I was constantly frustrated watching the TV this year, noticing how much times they stunted him. I mean, you got a guy who can literally beat the crap and split a double team. Let him create wreckage on his own and create stunts with other guys. But they constantly put him on stunts last year. Maybe because he's a rookie and he's still learning the game or whatever. But and I get it. Like he's a pretty good athlete. I mean, we don't know. He didn't have all his testing numbers. He ran a 4.83 in the 40, which is pretty good for a guy who's 300 plus pounds.
He's a good athlete.
Yeah, I'm just saying, but he didn't run a 3-cone and everything like that. So
yeah.
But whatever, he's a pretty good athlete, so I get it. You can have him as a looper or whatever, and he could do an okay job at that. Sometimes they lined him up on the edge. And, he can crash down on an offensive tackle and bully him into a quarterback, but he's not going to bend around the edge. Like, keep him, between the 3 and 0.
Mm-hmm.
And let him wreck from in there. I mean, I hope to see much more of that this year.
Yeah, for sure. He and his technique was so good at Bama too. So like just having him one-on-one with a tackle, or a guard or a center, I think he's going to take that step up. Let's just say that. I don't want to get too much into it because we have to.
Some of that's on him though. Some of that's on him because remember last year he said he didn't feel like he needed to work with a pass rush special. I mean, like listen, almost all these guys, the really good guys at their positions. Tom Brady is one of the greatest ever. He's still working out with quarterback coaches and stuff. He should have been working out with a Chuck Smith or something like that.
And the whole gun thing too. I don't think he's a bad dude. I think he was just stupid. Like I don't think it was anything crazy. But
and you're in law enforcement too. I mean, you can understand someone making a mistake. Gun laws are vastly different between state to state.
Yeah, for sure. Now moving on to the linebackers. Bringing back Jenkins, bringing back Hewitt, bringing in or back Burgess, bringing back Peanut or bringing in Peanut. Thoughts on the linebackers? Obviously, they still don't have like a true threat at outside linebacker. I like the Jenkins deal for I think it's $5.5 million. I don't want to see Copeland go, but obviously he did go. But I think with outside linebackers, like they're okay there. Obviously, you want a stud there, but Jenkins, Basham, I think it's fine. Obviously, the inside linebackers, having Mosley back is going just, and again, the Buffalo Bills, the first game, the first 3 quarters versus the last quarter, the amount, and I think that's one of the things that's overblown too, that middle linebacker doesn't matter. Middle linebacker matters a lot in terms of directing your defense, like a lot. Maybe, honestly, in terms of a guy who's directing your defense, and this might be a little bit like crazy to say, I'd really have to break it down, but minus edge rusher and corner, it might be the 3rd most important position on your defense. So having him back, with having Williamson back, I think it's going to be a huge impact on the Jets. Now, what are your thoughts on, I guess, the linebacker position overall, and then letting Williamson go? Would you look into doing that? What are your thoughts on letting him go? If I think it's like 7.5.
All right. Well, I'll start with You want to start with Williamson or comment?
You start wherever you want, Kyle Smith.
All right, I'm gonna comment on Mosley before I forget what I was thinking. Yeah, it's super important. I mean, like listen, the Jets with their One Jets Drive series really did a good job hyping up, like, how important Mosley is and how important he is with communication and things like that. Communication is absolutely essential in football. And like one of the things that really frustrated me at the end of the Bulls era, or actually happened for a big majority of the Bulls era and the Rex Ryan era, was, communication busts, and which would lead to coverage busts. And you'd see big wide open touchdowns or whatever. The Bills offense couldn't do anything that entire game. And once it was Mosley went out, that's when you start. I mean, and think about it. Like, okay,
it was instant.
So defenses shift formations and stuff, right? So like they might line up one way and then they motion a guy, or they motion everybody. They shift out, and then based on what the alignment is, and let's say if the slot guy's running vertical, or he's not running vertical, the people need to get these communication calls out. And, hey, listen, if the linebacker needs to carry number 2 or whatever, he needs to know who's carrying where and stuff. And I'm not going to it's not like I have the film in front of my face right now and I can't like necessarily break down everything. But you didn't see any of these coverage busts. You didn't see any of these explosive plays until Mosley went out. And Mosley's a pretty good coverage guy. I'm not saying it's mostly – and he, by the way, he got hurt on an amazing coverage play.
Yeah, Tampa
carrying a seam route. Yeah, Tampa too.
Yeah.
But just the communication aspect alone is huge. But the dude does not miss tackles. He's so good at avoiding, not just like running like Avery Williamson's a battering ram. He just runs through guards.
I love the way Avery Williamson plays. Yeah. I love it.
But Mosley is just like, you wouldn't think of it based on looking at like his body style, whatever, because he's not like a great athlete.
He's really good with his hands and his leverage.
Yeah, and he's very nimble too, and like just knows how to like bend around people.
Yeah.
But anyway, he doesn't miss tackles, and he is very good with understanding what zone he needs to be in, and when he needs to carry, and when he needs to drop off, and
even just simple things, Kyle. Like there's like certain things. Okay, well, if a guy motions from one side of the field to the other, now everybody moves in a gap, and now the corner's filling on the outside is the force player, and now instead of Fadokasi being a single gap player, now the guy next to him on the weak side is now a 2 gap. Like there's so much little things that happen in the game that people have no idea about. And he was the director of all of it. And that's why the Jets defense with Mosley healthy would have been a much better unit last year. And now adding him, and then what are your thoughts on Williamson letting him go? And just quickly on that, I'm not going to get really far into it. Burgess isn't a starter. Cashman's not a starter. Hewitt's not a starter. Peanut's not a starter. Williamson, I feel that he's underrated. I think that you feel the same way. I think you really like his game as well. So what are your thoughts on letting him go?
I would not even consider that. That would not even be a thought in my mind. The Jets got him for a steal of a contract. It was like 3 years, an average of like $5 million a year or something like that.
I think it's like 7.
Average 7. Okay,
I think it's like 3 years, $21 million or something like that.
Okay, whatever. I mean, shoot. That's almost a third of what C.J. Mosley is. And is he at least half the player of C.J. Mosley? Yeah, most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's not a super big gap between those players. He is a great player. He is a great inside linebacker. And that type of playing style is infectious too. I mean, when you want to talk about just blowing the shit out of a guard who's pulling and then making the tackle, like that fires you up as another defensive player or whatever. And he's a good team leader. I mean, like, think about it. Like, good locker room guy. I mean, this guy – think about how dedicated he is to this team. He's not on a super big contract. He's dressing up in his football helmet and cleats every Sunday watching the team. He is dedicated to this team. I wouldn't even think about cutting this guy. I mean,
no.
You kidding me? I know you got a lot of money invested in the inside linebacker, but you don't cut one of your best players on your team. I don't remember what I had him ranked when we did our top 25 rankings, but I think it was like 4 or something like that.
Having him and Mosley behind Fadokasi and Quinnen Williams and McClendon, it's going to be such a hard unit to run on. Now, obviously, you have concerns with the secondary, but hopefully if those guys are healthy, you can have Jamal Adams playing in the secondary a little bit more in coverage to help those guys out, to be completely honest, even though you'd like Jamal Adams in the box and things like that, but flexing him out into the slot and things like that might help them a little bit more. In terms of the cornerbacks and, their leverages, and okay, they can play outside leverage and it makes it easier instead of having like a 2-way go type deal. So, Williamson's really, I love the way Williamson plays, so I don't want to let him go. Now, outside linebacker, I guess you don't really have thoughts on that. It's the same thing as last year. You're just losing Copeland. Obviously, if they can get a guy in the 4th round, great. But.
I listen. I'm Jenkins. Not that I thought he should have got big money or anything like that. I thought he was at least going to get like $8-ish million a year.
8-9, yeah, so I thought too.
I was really surprised. Not that he's not. For him, it's mostly just athleticism. He's not a plus athlete. He's a minus athlete on the edge. But his technique is good.
Mm-hmm.
And he has really long arms, and he knows how to use those long arms. And he's a very powerful player. $5 million a year, that's a steal. That's a steal.
A lot of people argue, why not just sign him for 3 years, $15 million? People don't realize, again, it's not Madden. He's not going to take that. He wants that $5 million, $5 million a year to have another good season, and then have a team pay him, $9-10 million a year. People are like, well, what the hell? Why didn't he sign him? Joe Douglas is trash. It's like that. It doesn't work like that. And the same thing with which we're going to transition into corner Poole. Oh, why not just sign him for a bigger deal? The problem with signing Poole to a bigger deal is, again, great contract for what he did last year. He was not consistent with the Falcons. He just wasn't. And last year he played well, but I always respect the regression to the mean if they had a really good season, just like with Myers.
Especially with corners.
Exactly.
Corners. What position group is more up and down on any given year than corners?
Yeah.
And I have a problem with paying, and not that he's old, but once you start to get in your late 20s, which he's not even there yet, that's old for a corner.
Mm-hmm.
So, like a lot of people are happy. Oh, Byron Jones, actually, the Dolphins got a pretty reasonable deal for him, and he's a good player. I'm not saying he's not a good player. I'm not saying that they didn't get him for, maybe cheaper than people were thinking. When is the last time that a big multi-5-year cornerback contract, big money, worked out for a team? Just think about our team. Tremaine Johnson and Revis. Both those guys were in their late 20s when we signed them. Those deals certainly didn't work out. So I'm just going to say, okay, Byron Jones, he might be pretty good for the Dolphins for the first 2 years of that contract, but on the back end years, is he going to be worth it?
I remember Talib being good for a good amount of years with the Broncos, but I don't remember how long he was there. Maybe 3-4 years after the Patriots. But there's not a lot of examples.
Yeah, but that's a good point. I don't know. Maybe
that's all. But that's not like I'm not saying, oh well, this guy, that corner though. Desir, listen, I think it's an upgraded position because they have a body there. Like Roberts was absolute trash. Johnson was absolute trash. I think having Desir, who I compared to like a 2017 Morris Claiborne, bend but don't break type guy, who will be frustrating when he plays, 10 yards off the line of scrimmage on 3rd and 3 and gives up a hitch route. Like he's a little bit frustrating in that sense of it, but I think he's the best corner on the Jets team right now, and I feel comfortable with him. I want to see him press. I want to see him in cover 2 as that cloud corner. Because if you watch his game in the playoffs 2018 against Hopkins, he was really, really impressive. Now, when he played him 2019, like mid-season sometime, he got roasted because he started opening his hips and he really, uses the inside hand to slingshot himself inside if the guy does go inside. But DeAndre Hopkins is so strong at the top of his stem that he would just throw him off and he got dominated. But I think it's a better position. Obviously, I don't think you have any problems with cutting Roberts or Tremaine Johnson, but people who it was funny going into this offseason. Oh, well, we're fine with Mollett and Bless Austin. We don't really need to add a lot more guys. That's a joke. Listen, Bless Austin has been historically injured. He played like 4 games in his final 2 years of college, whatever it was. He played 5 games for the Jets, I think, and 4 of them were decent, and then he got benched. So if you want him as your 2, by all means. And if you think Arthur Mollett, who's like 29 years old and a journeyman guy, can be a number 3, number 4, that's the joke too. So I think the corners and the corner position is the biggest need on the defense. Now, yeah, if there was a stud outside linebacker versus a stud corner, I'd probably want the stud outside linebacker. But I think with how good the Jets front 7 is, they can kind of hide that weakness outside linebacker. Where corner, you can't hide that weakness. You just can't. So I think corner is a dire need right now for the team still, even after this year. But like I said, it might be slightly upgraded because of this year.
And plus, just look at the landscape of the NFL nowadays. Teams are loading up at receiver. There's a report, and it could just be total smoke or whatever, that the Chiefs are interested in trading up for Ruggs. And I mean, the Chiefs, they're just like, they believe in just overwhelming you at one position. Like, they want to leave it so, like, you just can't cover them. Like, they already have Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Mecole Hardman, Travis Kelce, all these weapons. And adding Ruggs, too, like, as if that's even possible. I really doubt it is. But I'm just saying, like some teams just believe in that philosophy of just loading up at a specific position. The Cardinals, same thing. I mean, like, not a bad receiving core, but just, hey, let's go and add Hopkins as well. So I don't know. I mean, like, you can't have enough corners. And to think that you're good. And if a coach benches a guy too, that's really saying something. Like, it's one thing to point to the analytics. Oh, well, bless Austin, PFF gave him this grade and he only gave up this. Okay, well, it's a little bit beyond that. If Greg Williams, who's, in the meeting rooms with him, and because you have to understand, coaches are picking players' brains when they're in a meeting too. Like, what's your responsibility in this coverage if they run this route or whatever? And the corner gives this type of answer. Like, if he sees that his intelligence level is not where it needs to be and his situational awareness, he's not going to trust a player like that. So they have more information than us. And I know appeal to authority isn't always the best argument because coaches do make stupid decisions from here on out, but I think it's pretty telling if you get benched and stay on the bench for that long.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to run through the last 5 ones relatively quickly because I do want to get to the mailbag before we run out of time. Moves to be made. Is there anything that you're seeing on the free agency market, a guy that you really want, wide receiver, corner, tackle? Like, is there anything you want to see the Jets do?
I know he's on your wish list, Jason Peters.
Yeah. I think honestly for me too, and we'll move on, like I said, relatively quickly. I think Jason Peters, receiver, I would like to see after the draft, even with Peters, maybe see after the draft, but another corner, Darqueze Dennard is out there. Drake Kirkpatrick, I think that's some guys that could be looking at. Targets for the draft. Is there any? Obviously, I think you agree with me in terms of the positions that there should be targeting: receiver, tackle, and interior offensive line, edge rusher, corner. Do you have any different thoughts? Maybe a position like I think backup safety might be something they might look to.
Sure. I mean, yeah. Like, are you going to re-sign Marcus May?
Probably. I don't know.
Long injury history. He's what, 28 now?
Yeah,
at least 27. They drafted him old. I like Marcus May as a player, but I don't know that he's going to be worth giving him that contract. You're going to have to give Darnold a contract around the same time as him. So, I know the Jets are pretty good. Safety is not a weakness this year, but you got to start thinking long-term future too. So, yeah, sure. Safety could be something that they look for. I don't really see the Jets fans are divided on needs to address in the draft. They seem pretty united, but, some might disagree over which players they like better and whatever.
Yeah, okay. So and the last question, which I don't like even talking about it. Jamal Adams, that whole situation. What are your thoughts? Do you trade him? Do you pay him? What is his value to the team, etc.?
I would not trade him unless, look, listen, let's be honest. Every player has a price, right? Every player has a price. Mm-hmm. I would say nobody's untradeable.
Yeah.
If someone offered me a top 10 pick this year, a first rounder next year, and a second rounder this year, I might do it. What do you think?
Something like that. Yeah. 2 first and an early, like second or third, you might have to, but I think the whole, he just plays safety is complete crap. He played in the slot. He played edge. He could blitz up any gap. He could play in cover 3, cover 2, cover 4. He could play anything you want. Can man up on tight ends, can man up on a receiver, I bet, if they really wanted him to. He's a leader in the locker room. He's a leader, off the field. What he offers to the team,
guys to come play to the team.
What he offers to the team, not just on the field, is absurd. Like, losing that guy on your team, your best player on team, is going to hurt the locker room. It is. Regardless of what you think, it's going to hurt the locker room. He's the leader of the team. You do not want to get rid of him at 24 years old. He's the best safety in the NFL. Yeah, listen, he might be a little bit of a pain in the ass on Twitter, but pay him his money. Do not trade this guy unless you get a ridiculous offer, which you will not. Give him his money. And listen, people don't understand this. If they extend him, it's not like he has to have new money this year. They can extend him and have his same cap hit this year, and then the next year the cap hit comes into effect. So it's not like oh, well, you sign him, you have to give him $16 million this year. They don't have any money. There doesn't have to be new money in that deal. So there's ways around that. And I don't want to see him in the Cowboys. I don't want to see him on the Ravens. I want to see him as a Jet. And I said this the other day, Kyle. I don't know if you agree with me. There's been 3 generational players since both me and you. You're a little bit older than I am, just by a couple of years, but we're both relatively the same age. Curtis Martin, Darrelle Revis, Jamal Adams. That's the only generational players I've seen play on the Jets, and I do not want to trade one of them. That's just my thoughts. Get them signed.
Especially since you traded the other generational one in Revis.
Yeah.
That was beloved by the fans. And what does that do? Like, okay, you drafted him 6th overall, and it was an absolute hit. I mean, listen, I teach in Elizabeth, and it's a basketball town. So some kids, kids are into football, but not nearly like basketball. Any kid who's kind of into football, they can't name many players on the Jets roster, but every single one of them knows Jamal Adams.
Mm-hmm.
They know, oh, Jamal Adams, kicked the crap out of Daniel Jones when he stripped him. I have a lot of the people who love clowning on the Giants fans will bring that up. It's great. I mean, you're going to trade a player like that? No, don't do it. But what I'm saying is like, yeah, what would that do to wow, Jamal has been great. Every year he's been here with the Jets. He's been good in the locker room. He's been a leader on and off the field. You can't ask any more from him on the field. And you drafted him homegrown, and then you shipped him off, and you did the same thing to Revis. Like, what does that do for players
who not a good president
and their long-term, desire to want to stay with the Jets? I mean, what is that going to do in Darnold's mind? They drafted me too. Shoot, I've been doing a lot of losing since I'm here. They're going to want to ship me off.
Yeah.
It's not a good look. I wouldn't want to do it. But like I said, like if you could get a top 10 pick this year and that could turn into, a Judy or a Wills potentially, and you get a second rounder this year and that could be either another receiver or potentially another offensive lineman, and you're getting a first rounder next year, then maybe. But I'm not even doing like the Cowboys first rounder, which is like 17. That's too late for me.
Listen,
there's not as much blue chip players there.
Even with that, you have to hope those players work out. He's generational. So even if all those players you draft are solid, there's 3 solid players equal a generational player in my mind, and what he offers to the team off the field. I don't think so. So you have to hope those players hit, which is not a guarantee, obviously, with the draft, which is a crapshoot. So in my mind, sign him. He's like you said, playing football, like when one of our best guys on the team went down, even which was an injury, it really affects the locker room. And now when you're seeing guys who are playing really well, obviously we didn't get signed a contract in high school, but one of those guys gets traded away because he was a great leader and, like you said, couldn't offer more on the field. I think it's a joke. So sign the guy.
And the Jets are known as a joke franchise. Like you go and you trade away one of the best players in the NFL, man. Yeah. That joke team that they've been a joke for decades. They go and they trade away their best player.
Exactly. Yeah. So
it doesn't help the aesthetic.
I think it would be stupid to trade a guy who's that damn good at 24 years old. Who, listen, I love, and Revis is obviously a better player. Revis is one of the best corners of all time, if not the best corner. Jamal Adams is probably the best safety in the NFL. He's not on Dawkins or Reed's level yet. He'll never be on Reed's level.
Jamal can have a better career. Jamal can have a better career.
Not than Reed, maybe than Dawkins. I
didn't mean Reed. I'm saying than Revis, because Revis's career was finite.
In terms of I'm talking about like the peak, like.
Oh yeah, no way.
So, but Revis, the thing that Revis didn't offer that Jamal offered us, Jamal's more of a leader than Revis, in my opinion. So, like, just sign the guy. But let's move into the questions. Like I said, I'm going on another podcast, Jets 24/7 Talk, whatever it is. At 7:30, actually, I'm getting on at 7:30 or 8 o'clock. So, I'm sure we'll be talking about the whole Jamal Adams thing. I hate that conversation. Sign the freaking guy. Sign him. Just sign him. So, moving into the mailbag. First question from Joe at JetsJoe73. What rookies from 2019 impresses you the most? Or I guess impressed you the most, if any?
You know what? Answer that first. Sorry, I had to gather my thoughts.
No, it's okay. We'll do this. I'll go odds. You go evens. So I would say guys who I'm not going to say like I was so hyped on them. I think Cashman, when he came in, made some good plays. I would say Cashman has a little bit of an hour up. Again, you have to be fair with your expectations. I'm not expecting Cashman to come in as a 5th round pick and play like Luke Kuechly. So I think when he came in, he was okay. So I would say him. Bless on Austin for a 7th round pick who was injured when he did play. Yeah, he got benched, and I don't think he should be a number 1 or number 2, number 3. But as a depth guy, he impressed me. Other than that, maybe Adoga when he played right tackle is what I would say. I think Adoga when he played right tackle was relatively okay, which is fine. So I think those 3 guys, if any.
Let's see. Who the hell is number 98 for the Jets? What's his name?
Kyle Phillips.
Phillips. I know he wasn't a draft pick, but he impressed me.
Yeah.
He impressed me. I can't put Quinnen Williams on here because I was expecting much more.
No.
Part of that was, scheme related. Part of it might have been the injury. I know Scott Mason talked about that a lot, about how he had an ankle injury. You have less explosion when it's an ankle, but Chuma Adoga, and I want to watch the last half of the Jets season a little bit more. I wasn't super impressed. I know people like to tweet out like, oh, here's Chuma Adoga against Brandon Graham. Here's a good rep against DeMarcus Lawrence. DeMarcus Lawrence still beat the shit out of him by and large in that game, I thought.
Which, by the way, that contract is not looking good for the Cowboys. He had like 5.5 sacks last year.
Yeah, but he still had a lot of pressure, though.
Oh, here comes the Leonard Williams defender.
Hey, you were a Leonard.
No, I was.
Yeah, I mean, he has. I mean, a little bit disappointing, but I still think he's very good. To be honest, I wasn't really impressed with Chuma Adoga. He does have nice feet and stuff, but he needs a lot of work, and he definitely needs to get stronger. And he definitely doesn't have any type of mean streak in him, So, and again, running game, like he could be a pretty good pass protector, maybe if he works on his craft more. But I don't ever see him being a plus run blocker. So, to be honest, Bless Austin did impress a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm going on way too long. I didn't expect anything out of him when you looked at a 6th-round pick and the injury history, but I think fans overhype him, a little bit though.
Yeah, he's not a number 2, number 3 at this point. I think considering he was a 7th-round pick and injured, him coming in and playing like he did, okay, he might be a nice depth piece at this point. To me, like maybe he could prove more if he's healthy. But moving on, Sun Moon Rise 31 with no spaces. At Sun Moon Rise 31 with no spaces. This is you. Considering realistic outcomes and bearing possible trades in the upcoming draft, what will your dream outcome as Jets choices in round 1 to 3 and why?
Okay, so I guess I'll take this one first. So the dream for the Jets, and it is still kind of
realistic. We can't say, okay, Chase Young falls to 11.
Sure, yeah, there's no way that's happening. Yeah, it is somewhat realistic that Wills could fall. I mean, everyone keeps saying, and this has been the consensus for months now, is that there's really 4 really good blue chip prospects at the tackle position, but different teams vary drastically depending on how they have these guys on their own boards. And if you look at the Browns just signed Conklin, who's always been a right tackle. Wills has always been a right tackle. Is he athletic enough to play left tackle? Yes, but he hasn't done it. That right there might be enough for the Browns to say, we're not going to take Wills. So they might not take Wills. The Giants could take someone like Becton or whatever. The Cardinals, I keep hearing that, they need help on defense. They could go on defense and draft a Simmons or a Derek Brown or whatever. It's realistic that Wills could fall.
Yeah.
So him at 11 is definitely the most ideal. And then obviously if you're getting a tackle in round 1, round 2, a receiver. I can't say that I watched some of the second, third round guys that much. But I've heard a lot of good things and saw a little bit of Michael Pittman, who Donald has a relationship with already, who – he just going based off of numbers and stuff, like he's already a pretty good route runner, 6'4", 223, ran a pretty good 40 time for that size, 4.5 something, decently good route runner, strong hands. That seems like if you can get Wills round 1, him round 2. Again, I don't really want to speak about people I don't know about that much, so I can't really say about later rounds.
Yeah. No, that's fine. And we talk about it. I don't want to be one of those guys who just spread. A lot of people will say, you can tweet at anybody right now, a random guy. Oh, what's your opinion on this 5th-round guy? And they'll give you an opinion, and all they're doing is going to NFL.com, typing in him into NFL.com, and then just regurgitating what they're reading. So, I don't like to give out opinions of guys because there's guys who I'm not going to speak to on air, but Kyle knows, who are big within the Jets community, who I think are pretty garbage in terms of their evaluations. So I don't like to just do that. But in terms of me, just to be quick, Wills in the 1st round. Guys I've seen a little bit in terms of the 2nd round. Again, I would like a receiver in the 2nd round, like a Rager or a Mims falling would be I think a great thing.
By the way, I do like Mims. I've watched a decent amount of Mims, but I don't think he's going to be there at 48.
I don't think so either. So I would say Mims, but Rager's probably more likely, even though I don't think Rager will be there. But again, you're talking about a dream scenario. So, and then in the 3rd, some names I've seen like AJ Terrell, Jonah Jackson. I think any kind of positions between corner, inside, offensive line are the kind of the guys I want in the 3rd, 4th type round. So again, I haven't watched all those guys. I have a job. So it's not my full-time job. Moving on to the 3rd, drink jet fuel at Bowls _fire. Hey, yeah. Okay. So, hey Joe, I really enjoy your stuff. You're head and shoulders above I've ever heard breaking down film. I'm curious what your background is and how you got so good at film work. Obviously, I appreciate that. And just to be quick, I'm not definitely head and shoulders above anybody. There's guys who are out there who are definitely better than me. I still learn stuff from Cover One from the Bill stuff. He's been doing this for a while. There's plenty of guys out there who know more than I do. The more you learn, legitimately, the less you feel you know, because you learn something about a concept and you're like, okay, well, why did he do this on this play, then that on that, and then you just go into a deep, dark hole. So, but I played football in high school. I played free safety, corner, receiver, running back. I started listening to Jet Nation Radio when it first started with, like, I knew it was Tyson, who does Let's Talk Jets now, and Dennis. And I started listening to Brandon when he started doing the show. I called into Brandon's show on Jet Nation Radio. He called me back after the show and asked me to be a host. I started hosting with Brandon. Me and Brandon split up. I started hosting with Glenn. I was the host and Glenn was the co-host. And then we went in different directions on to do more film type stuff. I went to TOJ. Then now I'm here on Jets X Factor. A lot of it was reading books, and a lot of it is researching. When you run into something you don't know, research it, look it up. Read books on it. Watch coaching clinics. I've watched hundreds of hours of coaching clinics on the offensive line. So I was kind of self-taught, and I played in high school. But that's really it. Kyle, I guess you're on here too. What is you played offensive line in college and all that stuff? So
I'm not going to answer that question for myself because I'm not on your level or anything like that. But I'll comment on you. The thing is you already have an innate interest. You're naturally interested in the subject of football. You love the game. You played the game, but you kept challenging yourself. It's not like you weren't just content with whatever you knew, and you weren't. See, some people are arrogant and they think they know a lot about the game. Oh, I couldn't possibly, want to know more, whatever. You come at it like, hey, listen, I know a lot more than the average person or whatever, but there's so much I don't know. So let me keep spending more time to learn more and more and more and more and more. Because the reality is the game changes all the time. There's always going to be new shit to learn and stuff. Mm-hmm. So you're constantly challenging yourself and you keep working at it. So, I mean,
yeah, it's
for those of you guys. Sorry, Joe. For those of you guys that don't know Joe that well, I've known Joe for 4 or 5 years now, something like that.
Probably more. We started talking when I would say like 2014-ish, 15-ish.
Definitely 15, I think.
Well, they drafted Hackenberg, and we were friends before they drafted Hackenberg.
So they drafted Hackenberg in 16. So I think around
14-ish.
I think around 15. Anyway, I'm just saying, like, in the amount of time that I've known Joe, I've seen him grow a lot. A lot. So the Joe that you're hearing and seeing his stuff now is very different from 5 years ago, because during all that time he gets free time. He's using a lot of that to, football is something, he takes pleasure in, and it's fun for him, but it's also work in a sense too. So
yeah. It's and like I said, I brought you on because you're super knowledgeable as well. It's getting complacent, getting lazy it's something you don't want to do. A lot of people will like learn one thing, like, oh, I know the difference between inside zone and outside zone. Now I'm going to stop. So there's so much information out there. Like, I was just looking into the book and Bible reads the other day in terms of like blocking up the arc with his own options and stuff like that. Like that, there's stuff I don't know that I have to learn about. Like until you're at Bill Belichick's level, who still has to learn stuff about drafting, you can't get complacent. That's why I hate like going on Twitter. I'm like, there's this guy with 3 followers who I've never heard talk about football saying, oh, well, I love this 5th round guy and he has really strong feet and hands. I'm like, oh my God, I just stop responding to people. But 4th question, Roberts Lee, and I appreciate that, Kyle. Roberts Lee at Jets Bum 2004. Who are you expecting to make a major impact that we are overlooking right now? I guess in 2020. That's an even. So that is you.
So a player currently on the Jets roster that people are overlooking who's going to have a big impact. Is that the question?
Yeah.
More or less. Quinnen Williams. People are clowning that pick because, the Jets went interior defensive line again. They just don't learn from their mistakes. And then they draft a guy and then they get rid of them. Wilkerson, Richardson, Leo Williams. They got rid of all of them. So now people are saying the same shit about Quinnen Williams. We should have went with Josh Allen, meaning edge rusher Josh Allen. No, they shouldn't have. I stand by that. Quinnen Williams, if I'm wrong, I will publicly apologize to anyone. I still believe he's going to be a very, very, very good player in the league in due time. and so many people are sleeping on it. Someone asked you, I saw on Twitter the other day, hey, these top 8 prospects that you ranked, Joe, where would Quinnen Williams stack on your board if he were in this year's draft class? You said number 1.
For sure. He was
Dude, his college
dominant,
tape is
dominant.
so dominant in the SEC, the best competition that you're talking about in the entire nation.
Yeah.
Tell me the last time an interior lineman was that, and listen, it's not, and like now Derek Brown, like people are saying, oh, he's really good too. And by the way, Jedrick Wills, I heard him he was talking about the best people he's ever went against. He said, Derek Brown from Auburn, he was a beast too. And he might be a beast too. But one of the things that Derek Brown's problem is he's athletically not that good.
Yeah.
Terrible 3-cone time, terrible 40 time. Quinnen Williams is a better athlete, meaning he has a higher ceiling as well. Plus better technique.
I haven't watched his tape, but I severely doubt that his hands are as good as Quinnen Williams' hands were. So
yeah.
If he's used in the proper way, listen, like you said, I think look up the stats. Look up Geno Atkins. I think it's like 3 sacks his first year. You look at all these other interior defensive linemen, their stats were like 2 sacks, 3 sacks in their first year. So let's not get crazy. I would agree with Quinnen Williams. I would say guys sort of make a major impact too. Like just to throw out a couple names, Herndon. People don't really talk about Herndon anymore. He was really solid his rookie year.
But people really hyped him up after his rookie year, though.
True. Fadu Kasi, I think, is a guy who I said he's going to be a really good nose tackle. Like he was so good last year.
He's already really good.
Yeah. Avery Williamson and Mosley are guys all throughout there who people aren't like, oh, the Jets defense. And they don't mention Mosley or Avery Williamson, who are both – Mosley is a pro ball linebacker. Avery Williamson's a little bit below his level, but still an upper echelon linebacker in the league in terms of inside guys. That's who
I'd have to imagine he's around top 10. I'd have to imagine.
If we did a list, I'm sure we'd have him in the top 10 to 15. I would imagine. And you have 2 of those guys together. I think in terms of front 7 players minus outside linebacker, I think the Jets probably have one of the strongest front 7s in the entire league right now. With everybody healthy, with Fadu Kasi, with McClendon, with guys that are talking about Phillips and Quinnen Williams and even Henry Anderson, if you want to throw him in there. The inside linebackers they have, like they have a really good box. If they get an outside linebacker, great. Question 5 or question 6. No, this is question 5. Sorry. Same guy, Robert Lee, Jets bum, 2004. If we go to a 4-3 defense, which looks more and more likely, which looks more and more likely, what do you think would be the starting line versus rotational people? If you're talking like a base 4-3, I would say Jenkins as like the week 5 technique on the backside of it. Quinnen Williams the week 3 because he could pursue down the line of scrimmage. The one tech on the strong side, I would say would be Fadu Kasi and McClendon, and then the strong like 4-eye 5, I would say Anderson, and that's I'm talking about in a underfront. So. And then in terms of the linebackers, like the linebackers are kind of confusing with this because like it's not guys who are necessarily just with their hands in the dirt. I would say in terms of in an underfront, which is the one thing I thought about, Sam. I mean the Sam backer who is a little bit outside of the box or right on the edge of the box, usually right by the line of scrimmage. In that underfront would be Avery Williamson because I think he could against guys who are trying to kick him out against pulling guards, he could fill that role fine, and he could also play a little bit into coverage into those shallow zones where a guy like Jenkins couldn't really play because he's not athletic enough. I think he's not good enough in coverage to play that role. Where Avery playing Sam, I think would be good in an underfront. Mosley's the Mike. That's who you want as the Mike always. He's the Mike. And then the will backer, the backside guy, the run and chase guy who's not going to have to think a lot is going to be, I would say, like Peanut or Cashman, guys who don't really want to think a lot. Just you're going to cover a lot of ground laterally and run and chase type role. I think that would be it, but I don't agree that it's necessarily a lock for a 4-3 because I think they have more 3-4 type players on their team, their defensive line, than 4-3 guys. So it's going to be multiple.
Yeah, I got to say, like, and I'll agree with like what you said in terms of who you're going to put at which spot, but. And this is not to make the question or feel bad or whatever, but I think we really need to stop using these labels, move to a 4-3 versus 3-4. I think it's really irrelevant nowadays. I was just watching over the past couple of days, I was watching the coach's film of the Dolphins game, the first Dolphins game, the one in Miami, the Jags game, the Cowboys game. And I got to be honest, the Jets had 4 down linemen with their hand in the dirt. I don't have the percentages. They had that more often than they had 3 guys with their hand in the dirt in that game. And plus nowadays with all the nickel sets and stuff, I mean 4-3 versus 3-4.
It's like
Um,
2-4-5. Like you see a bunch of stuff.
yeah, it's not really super relevant or important. The fact of the matter is you want to have guys that are versatile that you can deploy in a matter of ways too, because one of the biggest things with defense is just you know, things move fast in the game, and it's all about everybody's good. Every quarterback is, you know, quarterbacks are smarter than they were decades ago because they make a lot more money now. So in the offseason, they spend a lot more time, you know, hiring the best clinics or hiring the best coaches and stuff. They're really dedicated to their craft. It's all about confusion. So if you can have guys that can play different positions and give a different look to the offense, that does wonders for your defense. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Labels where you just peg a certain guy, he's playing the same spot all game. It doesn't happen nowadays.
Yeah, I was watching his fronts and like even like last week, I did like 4-3 over, 4-3 under, just a regular 4-3 stack, 4-2-5, 4-2-5, like 4-4-3, 3-3-5, 2-4-5. Like there's so many fronts. Don't get caught up in that. But moving on to the 6th question. Michael Christopher at Big Dogs 1318. What round 2 to 4 wide receivers do you like the most for Darnold and Gase if they go offensive tackle in round 1? Is there any way you would go with Judy if any one of 4 tackles are left?
So this is me answering this first.
Yep.
All right, I'll start with the Judy question, I guess. Yes, it is. I don't know. I go back and forth. That's really hard for me because I feel like Judy, I can't see him being a bust. I mean, I guess there's always busts that people just can't envision. It does happen. Judy was a 5-star player coming out of high school. Ruggs wasn't. So Judy was his route running is so good, and you've made this same point. His releases are so good. Even if he's not the greatest athlete in the world, people clowned him for his 20-yard shuttle or whatever. The dude knows how to release and get off the line of scrimmage, knows how to get in people's blind spots. The way that he stops on a dime is so violent.
Those cuts I was showing. Did you watch that show where he would?
Everything I could watch before the video cut off. I watched it all. Yeah, I mean, he's so good, man. Like listen, every cover corner is good in the NFL. People aren't, there's a lot less blown coverages in the NFL than there is in college football. Coverage is a lot tighter in the NFL. But if you can run good routes, that's the one sure way you're going to get open. That's the one sure way to make production week in, week out. That kid, he would help Sam Darnold, no doubt. I mean, I think offensive line in totality is more important for helping the young kid. But I'm a little unsure about Becton. But you know what? After watching at least the vast majority of Becton's pass pro reps in all 22,
I was more encouraged too.
Yeah, not that his footwork it's pretty good. I mean, he sometimes, like I think you said that sometimes he's not the greatest with his punch sometimes. But the thing is even if he allows a defender to get into his chest, he's so big that his girth just like absorbs players. And once he does like get locked in on them, they're not moving him. He's just that big.
Yeah,
and sometimes he does open up the gate a little too much, but that stuff can be corrected. He's still really young. I think he just turned 21.
And he's so big that he has room to be okay technically and still be a top-tier tackle.
And one of the thing I think I like most about Becton and why I think he could really be really good for the Jets is what he does in the run game.
Yeah.
I mean, he just bullies people in the run game. The Jets get no movement. This guy moves people. I mean, literally moves them. You watch defenders, he'll be blocking them on the edge, and look, he is athletic enough to play, running outside zone in Adam Gase's offense. He's athletic enough to do it. And when he gets out inside, when he gets his hands on someone, he keeps pushing them, keeps bullying them to the sideline and stuff. It's like he will help create movement in the run game that the Jets haven't had in years. So while I think he could potentially turn into could potentially be a bust, and there's a part of me that wants to go Judy over him, I don't know that I could justify it. I don't know. I feel bad about it.
Yeah. Well, it's like, and well, you don't drink, but it's like the analogy that I used was, okay, or me and Scott used. It's like, okay, you have $2,000 And instead of spending a night out in Vegas with that $2,000, you're going to fix the back deck for the summer type $2,000. So it's like something
I remember you guys saying this. I really like this
you need
analogy.
to do over something you want to do. So like for me, no. And the only thing I can see like Thomas is he's not my OT1, he's my OT3, but I don't think he fits well in a zone scheme. So if they did that where they picked Judy over Thomas, maybe, but Thomas is also a lock, I think, to be at least a decent starter. So
and in the NFL, offensive tackle, that is huge.
Exactly.
There are so many that are just so bad, and the difference between average and bad is a huge difference.
Exactly. So no, even though I like Judy, he's my number 2 player on my board, and I might say yes to drafting Mekhi Becton or whoever who's 7. I think it's a smarter pick for Darnold. And listen, and I love Judy. The criticism I get with Judy is I don't think he'll ever be a top flight guy. Like he's not Julio Jones. He's not Odell Beckham. He doesn't have that
the athleticism. Yeah.
But if I had to bet, he's a top 15 guy, a Diggs and Allen. Obviously, they all have different stuff, but they're all really good receivers, number 1s. So if he could be that, that's great. And listen, I like Lamb, but I showed in Lamb's film, he got a lot of free releases. He broke a lot of tackles that were poor tackle attempts versus bad, routes to cut off him in the open field. And I think he's overrated in terms of, okay, he's DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is huge. He's a big dude. You watch Lamb.
He's not huge. He's not huge, but he plays big.
He's 215. He's 215.
That's not huge.
Okay, he's big.
Calvin Johnson is huge.
Okay, sorry. Comparing both of their bodies, he's a lot lankier, and he's not going to be as strong as a catch point as DeAndre Hopkins is. There's just no way.
Yeah, the difference between 198 and 215 is a big difference.
Exactly. And if you're 215, like Hopkins is 215, the way he plays at 215, I doubt it. So, but I'm taking tackle over Judy. It would hurt me because the way he can turn, like I was showing in the film, the way he can turn 180 degrees off of a step because he opens his foot correctly to get his hips to turn, and he gets his drive step underneath of his frame is absurd. It is absurd. So I love Judy, but it's an offensive lineman for me. And with pairing with that, just player versus player, you have to also consider how deep the draft is at receiver. If you like the tackles, is Lucas Nang going to be there at 48? Is that guy Urza Cleveland, whatever his name is Austin Jackson? Is Josh Jones? Probably not, based on what I've seen. So now you're going with like a 3rd-tier tackle versus what could be a 2nd-tier receiver, with tackle being the more important position. And a really dumb argument that I've heard over the last couple of weeks is you're taking the 4th best tackle over the best receiver. This tackle class is an outlier. All of these guys in different years would most likely be the number 1 or 2 pick in terms of tackles. So they're all really, really good players. They happen to come out in the same year. So that's a garbage argument. But continuing with the question, some of the guys, again, I haven't watched a ton of them. 2nd-round guys, I'd be really happy with Rager or Mims, like I said. The 3rd-round guys, I like Van Jefferson. I like Donovan Peoples-Jones. And the 4th round, the only guy I've really seen play at all is Davis from South Carolina, who I like, who can run some routes. But again, I don't like I'm not going to say, oh, well, guess what? Here, strengths and weaknesses, Davis. Oh, strong route runner, Yak. Doesn't open drive. Like, I'm not going to do all that stuff, so I don't really know those guys. But
forgive me if you mentioned this name. I don't remember hearing it. Did you mention Chenault?
So no.
Because I see such variances. Like Ben Solak had him ranked 12th on his big board. A guy at like 10 spots ahead of Henry Ruggs.
I'm concerned about. I
know durability. He's got some durability stuff. I understand that.
And guys who are big yak guys.
Could he be like a Cordell or Patterson?
Concern me because you can't do that in the NFL as good as you do it in college. They took a Lamb. A lot of his yards came from yak.
Yeah, like Tavon Austin flamed out.
Can you do that in the NFL? Not as consistently, not nearly as consistent.
It's much harder to project that type of production than versus someone who's such a clean route runner.
Route running is my number 1 thing I look for in receivers and coming out of college. That can translate. The way that Judy cuts is going to translate to the NFL, and it's going to get open. I can guarantee he's not going to be. I can guarantee it.
Yeah, no matter what team he goes to. No matter what team he goes to, he'll.
Now it depends on his fit. If a guy's trying to send him deep all the time and win 50-50 balls, then that's their fault. You want him as an intermediate to short guy who's going to run good routes. Now, can he get vertical? Yes, but you want to take advantage of his route running. He'll be flexed into the slot and things like that. He can win outside as well. But moving on. This is me, Joe at Jets Joe 73. What are the key traits Greg Williams looks for in a corner? He said if they're passive in the run game, are they a no-go for him? I think he likes physical players. He likes guys who can get up in your face. He likes tough guys who can get involved in the run game, in blitzes. I think he likes smart guys. From what I was seeing, I would see a lot of trap coverages and palms and things like that, where they're getting asked to read the 2-1 and the 1-2 and all these different things. So I think he likes physical, tough guys who are smart. I don't think it's necessarily you need guys who can run 4.3 40s and things like that. Guys with long arms who can press you and are smart guys is what I would say. If they're passive in the run game, he's definitely not going to love you, because you look at the Jets corners. Even Roberts, who is bad, he was pretty involved in the run game at times.
Yeah, he's a tough little guy, Roberts.
He was. He would throw his head in there and force players inside. Poole is obviously a really physical corner. Desir is a guy who will miss a tackle or two because of technique, but he'll throw his head in there for sure. So he likes those guys.
And forgive me for mentioning this name because I know he's public enemy number
Buster
one in
Screen?
Jets' mind. No, damn it. Tremaine Johnson was with Greg Williams in St. Louis back at the time. And back when Tremaine Johnson was actually decent to good, he was also a tough son of a bitch in the run game.
Yeah, for sure.
And
he was smart too. That's why he got his money. He was a smart player.
Yeah, I mean, his interceptions that you saw Tremaine Johnson get were not Darrelle Revis types interceptions where Revis is shadowing the guy and then he runs the route better than the receiver and picks the ball up. That's a Revis interception. A Tremaine Johnson interception is like when they played the Titans, not last year but the year before.
Oh, that bubble screen.
He's just in the right place at the right time, because he read things right. Yeah, so I Williams, tough, smart guys who will get in your face and give you a quick jam off the line of scrimmage, and who can trap Kathy. Matt Bowen's got a good article on trap coverages if you guys want to learn. Cover 6 Kathy, Matt Bowen, Google it, you'll find it. Yeah. I think because Matt Bowen used to play for Greg Williams back in the day.
Yeah. Moving on to the 8th question. What specific attributes separate your wide receiver 1, offensive tackle 1 from the other prospects at their respective positions?
Can you read that for me one more time, please?
What specific attributes separate your wide receiver 1 and offensive tackle 1 from other prospects at their respective positions? So if you have Wills 1, what separates him from the other 3 guys? And if you have Judy 1, what separates him from Ruggs, Lamb type deal?
So for me, the biggest thing is technique. I will take a high floor guy. Let's just start with offensive line. I'll take a high floor guy versus a high ceiling guy any day. Because like I said, with offensive line, there are so many tackle prospects that bust out. I mean, Jets fans were in love with this freaking guy from Ohio State, plays for the Lions now. What the hell is his name? He's the guy who tore Jalen Smith's knee.
I don't know.
I forget his name. You don't know his name because he sucks in the NFL.
Okay, there you go.
But he went to like 20th overall or whatever it was, and that was around the time that the Jets could have potentially drafted him or whatever. Taylor Decker, I think his name is. But there's a lot of tackle prospects that flame out. So for me, like, even if it's hard to really get your hands on an elite tackle. There's only so many of them that are really, really good year in, year out. But if you can get a guy who's like above average year in, year out, like that does wonders for your team. Like Eric Fisher of the Chiefs, he was a first overall draft pick. Now, a lot of people will say like, oh, well, he's not that great of a player for the first overall pick. Yeah, but a left tackle guy who's pretty good every year, like that's really, really, really valuable to the Chiefs. It's really valuable to the Chiefs offense. So for me, I want a guy like I'd rather take a guy, and I get it, with the Jets scheme, it's a little bit different. Wills, to me, he's already so technically refined. He is athletic. His technique is head and shoulders above someone like definitely Becton, and even worse for that matter, especially in pass pro.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, for me, the biggest reason why I'll take him. He doesn't have super great length, and his height, 6'4", that's actually short for a tackle. That's below average height for an offensive tackle. But technique is there. And to me, I want someone who's also going to be good in both aspects, run and pass pro, and he is that. So technique is definitely one, and I guess the ability to be both good in pass and run. So those are the biggest separators, I guess, for me. I do worry a little bit about Tristan Wirfs in pass pro.
Yeah, and I would really share my screen with you. It doesn't really matter, but the first thing I wrote for both of them, because they said tackle and receiver, is technique. That's the only thing I wrote down was technique, because that translates. Like I said, yak doesn't translate. Power doesn't translate. There's times where Becton has that upper body, lower body disconnection, and he throws a guy who's 230 pounds from a school in the middle of nowhere who nobody knows about. Where can he do that versus the Eagles outside linebacker, or you know what I'm saying? So it's the technical aspect. Judy is the best technical player. Plus he's a good athlete, and then Wills is by far the best technical player, and he's athletic too. Like, yeah, you know, he might not be the tallest guy, but he can bulldoze guys, and he's pretty athletic as well. So it's not like he's a bad athlete, but it just gets overshadowed. And if he was to have the combine he did this year, in a year where there wasn't guys like Wirfs and Becton, people would be talking about how good his combine was. So it's just that you have two freaks with him, but he's athletic and he's super technical. He's a really good. He's good in terms of that. So I would say technique over everything, because the other stuff, the size, the jump balls, the yak is all. It's a hard projection. It's a lot of guys bust out. So technique is something you can go back to. It's either good or it's bad.
If I can comment a little bit on the receiver thing, I must say, like early on, you definitely played a big role in convincing me otherwise. Initially, I was a little bit higher on Lamb. I think I had Lamb like number one in my mind for a while. I don't watch a lot of college football, at least not live. I watch more during draft season. But I'm a University of Texas football fan like Scott Mason. And I remember watching the Red River Shootout live. And Lamb had just some ridiculous catches and then broken tackles against our supposedly good defense. And I remember him wrecking us. And I was like, well, this kid, you know, that elevated him a lot in my mind. Mm-hmm. But after watching your film breakdown and stuff, I mean, I think a lot of that was just poor tackling. And you don't necessarily know if that is going to replicate. It's not going to replicate. Like, you know, that people like to tweet out that still frame shot where there's like 5 Texas defenders within an arm's length of CeeDee Lamb, and none of them brought him down. And then he ran for like 15 more yards, 20 more yards for a touchdown. That's not going to happen in the NFL. So, yeah, I mean, what is more translatable to the NFL? Good route running. I must say, though, and then this goes back to the whole deck analogy that you mentioned before. There is a part of me that is not going to be mad necessarily. I can't be mad. I could be a little disappointed or want something different.
I think this is the play.
This is the play. This is definitely the play. The flea flicker one.
Yeah.
Like here, I want you to pause it. Like not yet. Like now. Yeah, that shit. He's going down in the NFL. He's not going for a touchdown in the NFL right here.
No, it's you have a bunch of terrible angles. Obviously, this guy needs to maintain more outside leverage as he breaks outside. This guy is a piss poor tackle attempt. Like
what is that?
It's not going to happen in the NFL like this. It's just not. And if he was a big guy like 215, 220, 225, more like a Laviska Shenault body, then sure. But he's lanky. Like, he's not a big guy. He's not. He might play with an aggressive mindset, but aggressive mindset only gets you so far. You know. So,
I will say that I do think you are downplaying his ability to go up and get balls a little bit.
I think, and I'll admit to that. From what I saw from the broadcast angle, I didn't see a lot of it. There's games I didn't watch, and there's cut-ups I did not see. So was that there? It could be. Did I see it? No. So
okay, fair. Yeah. Hopefully, I mean, if he, hopefully he's not the pick, but if he is, with some of this film that you just got your hands on, you'll be able to maybe find a little bit more what you're looking for. And what I was going to say is, I will not be mad. I might be a little disappointed, and I'm definitely going to be questioning it in the back of my mind. If we draft Ruggs at 11, I can't be mad with that.
I won't be happy.
You won't be happy?
No. Nope.
Okay. And this goes back to the whole deck analogy thing. He is different than Tyreek Hill in a sense, but and Tyreek Hill is not the best receiver. Don't misunderstand anyone who's listening what I'm saying in the NFL, but he might be you can make an argument that he's the best weapon in the NFL.
Why was Robbie Anderson one of his biggest he didn't get 1,000 yards argument? Because the Jets didn't have protection to pass to him. You're looking at a guy who's going to be primarily a deep threat. He could do some other things, but primarily runs in deep threat.
He can do a lot of other things. You can't run a bubble screen to Robbie Anderson. You're not going to run an end around to Robbie Anderson.
I'd rather have a guy because again, yak is that translatable? Yes, the speed will translate, but how much? Okay, he won't break out 80, 90-yard touchdowns as much as he did at Bama. One, he was the third receiver in his own offense. Two, the yak isn't as translatable. And with a bad offensive line, I cannot justify taking him over over a guy even like Judy who will get open in 2 seconds versus Ruggs, how many bubble screens can you run in a game type deal?
I agree with you. Like, I think like in terms of my board, he's not there either. But I do think that you're downplaying his impact on the offense to even think this guy would be much more valuable to a Jets offense than Robbie Anderson. Let's
Ruggs?
just be honest. And
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
unbelievably more valuable to. I mean, you look at all the different ways that the Chiefs utilize Tyreek Hill.
Well, it's if he makes that transition to Tyreek Hill. There's plenty of guys who bust out.
But he's a better prospect than Tyreek Hill. This guy goes up and gets the ball much better than Tyreek Hill does.
Yeah, no, I like him, but
and he goes up and has pretty strong hands. He had 2 drops last year.
I like him, but with the Jets already having a speed threat in Perriman, I think it's much more important to get a guy like Judy or so I wouldn't hate
agree
Ruggs, but you cannot justify him over Lamb or Judy or a tackle to me. There's just no way. But
no, I'm with you.
And one of the things, and I always hear this argument. I want to get your opinion quickly. I might have to actually pause it, like I spoke about in a couple of seconds.
Sure,
here, Kyle. So we'll pause that. We're done with this. The whole left tackle versus right tackle thing with Wills. Left tackle has slight bit more importance because it's the blind side, but right tackle's freaking important too. You face the best rushers on the right side. Historically, all the guys on the left side are the better rushers than playing as a right end, right outside linebacker. So you're facing the better guys mostly in the NFL. And yeah, left tackle is a slight bit more important. People are like, oh, we can't draft Wills. He's a right tackle. We need him to play left tackle. Do it. And people, oh, well, it's easily translatable to left to the right. Start eating with your left hand. Start shooting with your left hand. Start throwing a football with your left hand. Start doing all that stuff off of your left foot. You know, it's not as easy to transition as people make it seem to be. Could he? Maybe. But if he's a Pro Bowl right tackle, how important is Lane Johnson to the Eagles? You know, how important all these good right tackles to their team? So I don't think it's like such a bad thing.
Mitchell Schwartz, you could argue Mitchell Schwartz was the best tackle in the entire league.
There's plenty of guys. Everybody's clamoring over Jack Conklin. He's a right tackle. Like, right tackle is really important. Left tackle is a little bit more important. But
yeah, of course.
Right tackle is great.
And people forget what was the reason why Jedrick played on the right side? Tua was a lefty.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was partly by design too. But yeah, that argument's bad. It's really bad for several reasons. Also, listen, if you're a smart defensive coordinator like Greg Williams, and you know you got a good edge rusher, and you know that one team's got a pretty good tackle on one side, and you know they got a dog shit tackle on the other side, aren't you going to be smart and exploit that matchup? It's not about hey, listen. You know, good players in a sense do like going against other good players because it proves how good they are. But if you're a defensive coordinator, you want to exploit the weakness. Let me put my great rusher against this shitty pass protector because I know it's going to result in pressures and sacks and potentially forced fumbles.
Yeah.
You know, so if you have a weakness on either side, best believe it's going to be exploited. And that happens now more than it did in previous years, 10, 20 years ago or whatever. And like I said, Jedrick is athletic enough that you could definitely put him on the left side. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know this information because I haven't watched Fant, but isn't Fant more comfortable on the left side? So taking someone like Wills, then you put Fant at the position where he's already more comfortable at.
Correct. When he was playing better in 2019, he was on the left side. True Madoga's the opposite, but we'll figure that out. I'm going to pause it real quick, Kyle. All right, next question, number 9, Jason Fernandez at _Jason TAVEIRA. Who are your favorite day 2 O linemen in the draft aside from the top 4 plus Josh Jones and Austin Jackson? Again, this is just based on what I'm hearing because I didn't watch a lot on any of these guys or any on most of these guys. Lucas Niang from TCU, Austin Jackson. You already mentioned that. So Niang and I guess Prince Tego Wanahu or whatever his name is. Cesar Ruiz from Michigan's a guy. Matt Hennessy. The only guy I've really seen any extended action on was Prince Tego Wanago or whatever. Because who did I watch play him? I watched one of the games against Auburn. I was watching a outside linebacker or something. Maybe it was against Chason. Yeah, I think it was against Chason. I was relatively impressed. So those are some of the names you can look at. But again, some of these guys cannot be scheme fits for the Jets. Some of them could have injury concerns. Like there's a bunch of things. Austin Jackson and even in Josh Jones are guys who they're saying are athletic enough. But I believe it was Josh Jones when he played all the upper tier rushers coming out of college. He got dominated in every game. So is he a guy that you want to take in round 2 and pass on a receiver, Josh Jones, Austin Jackson, Niang, all those guys might go early second or even late first as well. So that's a big risk to me to not take a tackle. If that's kind of what you're thinking in terms of, take a receiver, take one of those guys. A lot of those guys might not be available. I know Ruiz won't be. Austin Jackson won't be. Niang won't be. Josh Jones won't be. So then you're going to like your 7th, 8th option at tackle to start. It's a risky game to me. So those are some of the guys I've been hearing, but I can't speak too much on them.
My internet crapped out for a moment, so I missed some of what you said.
Okay.
I think I heard you talking about how Josh Jones got dominated against some upper echelon competition.
Mm-hmm.
I can't speak about any of those guys. And I kind of like the way that you do things. Like, you're more of a quality over quantity person. You know, like when you delve into a prospect or a draftee, you know him really well because you've watched, pretty much everything you can get your hands on, and you've watched it with a really sharp eye. If you're evaluating 200 to 300 draft prospects,
there's no way. Even if it's a full-time job, there's no way.
Yeah, you got to utilize your time a certain way, and it's not your full-time job. So, not that second or third round is pretty reasonable to get into some of those guys, but it's just not my thing. I'd rather, watch scheme or something like that. And once I know who the players are, then just kind of dive into them. So I couldn't even answer that right now, but once they do draft them and getting to watch the film, then, I could comment more. Same with you.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of people who you'd ask this question, to be completely honest, and would Google it and then write down their strengths and weaknesses and tell you that. I'm not going to do that. Like I said, I think it's irresponsible to do that, especially if people do respect my opinion. I'm not going to just say, oh, yeah, I really like, Austin Jackson's feet, but his punch is too wide. Like, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, it's a risky game. Offensive tackle round 1 is still what I'm going to say. Robert Lee, again, at Jets Bum 2004, got 3 questions in. I think that's all he got. Am I the only one who's afraid of – oh, by the way, something I didn't talk about before that you mentioned, we were talking about Becton. It just came to mind now. One thing that concerns me with Becton in terms of his top tackle guys, how many guys who are that big really avoid injuries? When you're talking about your joints and all that stuff, taking on 370 pounds, it concerns me.
Yeah, that is a good point. That is a really good point.
I thought about the other day. I was like, how many guys like you and you know this, you're not a stupid guy. Guys who are bigger tend to deteriorate quickly, and even like things like their organs, like their hearts, they have to work harder, they die quicker. Your joints and all of that in your body are not made to carry that much weight, that much size. So he concerns me of, okay, he might be great for a couple of years. Is he going to be healthy his 5th, 6th, 7th year consistently? I don't know. That's another question for him. That's why he's my number 4. That's just something I wanted to note, because it's literally something I was laying in bed the other night. I was like, that doesn't sound good. You don't hear of a lot of guys who are 370 pounds.
I would say that would be a very, very, very minor thing to look at in your evaluation of a prospect, especially if he hasn't already shown an injury history. I'd be much more concerned with a player who already has shown injury history.
No, it's just something I noted. But listen, he's 22, whatever now. What is he going to be like when he's 27, playing in 6 years off of those knees and stuff? Is there going to be cartilage there? Stuff like that. Like, I don't know.
There's not really a good example in recent history to point to a that freakishly size and athleticism.
Jonathan Ogden, right?
Ogden and Orlando Pace. But those guys you're going back decades ago. And I don't know I don't think they were consistently injured. I don't know that. I'm pretty sure. I think Ogden played maybe a little over 10 years, maybe 11, 12 years.
Yeah.
He probably still could have. I think he was one of those guys who kind of retired but still had some left in the tank.
Yeah.
Kind of like how Frederick just retired. He had some left in the tank. Who's another?
Like Darrell Revis. No, kidding.
Yeah, not like him. There was another good lineman that recently retired. Yonda recently retired. Yeah. He had a couple more good seasons. I know a couple of Jets fans were hoping that he maybe, one more year could come to the Jets.
Yeah.
But it is something to note. That is a good point. I didn't even think of that.
But going on with the question, I don't know why it just popped in my mind. But it's something I was laying about. I was like, I don't know. So Robert Lee at Jets Bump 2004. Am I the only one who is afraid of the Jets drafting Becton? Why is everyone dropping Thomas after years of production versus top talent? Even on tape, Becton looks lumbering and dominating lesser people. What are your thoughts on that?
Lumbering? I don't see that. I don't see that at all. He hustles whistle to whistle. He's a finisher. Yeah. Daniel Jeremiah, who sent out a tweet the other day, he said, out of all the prospects that I've evaluated, I can't, really think of many better finishers. And supposedly they got this new offensive line coach who also was at NC State, Coach Garrett Bradbury, prior to that. And one of the things that he really emphasized was finishing. And you could see a difference in Mekhi Becton's tape from 18 to 19 in terms of just his finishing. But he is a finisher. So lumbering, I don't see that at all. And he moves good. So lumbering, I don't see that. But in terms of concerns, we've already expressed some. Here's one we haven't expressed yet. And it's minor in my mind, but then it's minor for a certain reason. But it's still some cause for concern. And I think Scott Mason downplayed this. Mekhi Becton tested positive for marijuana at the combine.
Was it 100% marijuana, or was it different? Do we know exactly what it was?
I don't know. I thought that's what I read. Maybe I read it wrong.
Yeah,
I personally don't care. Obviously, the country has moved towards legalization and decriminalization all throughout the country.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if someone uses weed. Do I think that an adult
you're such an old. I don't care if somebody uses weed.
Let me finish, all right? I'm not coming from a moralistic standpoint or anything like that.
Light up a blunt. Come on, give me something.
No. I don't even think listen. Joe Rogan smokes on his podcast all the time, and he's a pretty productive guy, putting out all those podcast episodes, doing UFC commentating, training in the gym, black belts in martial art. He's a pretty productive guy, family man.
Yeah.
All right, reads books and stuff. What I'm saying is, the reality is the NFL will suspend guys who keep doing that.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Who cares if the guy likes weed? I don't care. I don't think it makes him a bad person or anything like that. But I don't want a guy who's getting suspended. Josh Gordon had a good amount of talent. But he can't put the blunt down.
Yeah,
Suspended.
The thing with that is too, and listen, and I'm not going to get all into this. I think legalizing would be smart, one, and two, there's no way you can convince me that's worse than drinking alcohol. I've done both plenty when I was in high school. Agreed. It's not worse than drinking alcohol, but the thing with that is, like you're saying, I don't have a problem with weed. I have a problem with him smoking weed or whatever he's doing near the combine when he knows he's going to the biggest interview of his life. He's going to get tested. So that's dumb. It's the dumb part of it that bothers me. Listen, I work at a job where I can't wear a white undershirt. Is it a stupid rule? Is it illegal? Well, yes and no, but it's something I have to do or I get suspended or I get yelled at. So I wear freaking black t-shirts. You can't smoke weed. You can't smoke weed. Like, you can't do it. So it's dumb. It's a dumb decision by him to do whatever he was doing. So that's the concern. It's not about the actual action where people, well, who cares about weed? It's the guy doing the action to get himself suspended. It's a dumb move. It's just dumb.
Yeah. Out of all the times in his entire life, that is
don't
the
want to be
window.
smoking weed. You don't want to be doing it then.
That is the window, whatever it is. It takes 30 days to get out of your system?
It depends on your body weight and your fat.
Okay.
And all that, yeah.
A month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever. Those period of months should be the time when he should be most vigilant about not doing that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And he did it. So, shoot, like someone like Joe Douglas, who apparently puts a high emphasis on character, that should raise maybe a red flag.
It raises a slight one. Listen, like I said, I got to shine my boots. If I don't shine my boots, I get yelled at. Is it illegal to not shine your boots? No, but it's a job. You're making millions of dollars. Don't smoke freaking weed for 3 months of the year. Just like the NFL, they tell you they're going to test you from this time or this time. If you don't get flagged for it, you can smoke weed 9 months out of the year. Marcus Coleman has attested to that. You just don't do it during those couple months and you're good. Especially for athletes, like it depends on, obviously linemen have more fat, so it sticks to your fat cells. If you're a more muscular guy, you don't have a lot of fat for it to stick to, like Josh Gordon, he was doing it like weeks before he was getting tested. Like, you could do it. There's guys, you could smoke weed once and a week later not get tested positive, because if you're only doing it once, it doesn't have a lot of chance to stick to the cells, but all that stuff. I don't want to get all to that. It's just dumb. Let's just say that. So I'm concerned by the talent. In terms of the talent, like, okay, yeah, his technique was shoddy and he dominated guys for 230 pounds from schools you've never heard of at times. So that's a concern. The weed thing is a concern. And like I said, the injuries, I don't know how – it's not a problem yet. It might be, though. That's a thing I thought of. So now would I take him at 11 with saying that? Yes. So it's just – those are things to note. Again, it's not the action of smoking weed. It's how dumb can you be during that time. It's dumb. Okay, so next one I pronounced this once correctly, and now I always have pressure to pronounce it correctly. Anil Ramlakhan. I think that's how you pronounce his name, at Elvis Jets 85. What do you think is the ideal mix of receivers in Adam Gase's offense? Is it guys who get open quickly, big guys who can make contested catches, fast guys who can get yak? I think you kind of outlined the three prototypes you want in offense. You can have three prototypes. He's horizontal spacing, get guys open in space, type of offensive coordinator, in my opinion, at least. So you want the shifty guys who can run routes over anything, but ideally you want all three. You have the speed guy in Perriman, the contested catch guy in Perriman. Judy would be the route runner along with Crowder. So maybe, Ruggs could fit because he'd be the yak guy that they don't necessarily have. Obviously assuming Quincy Newell is not healthy, which I think would be a correct assumption. But I would say the prototype he likes is the guys who are shifty. You can get open and create some yak, because that's a lot of what he does, where he layers guys on the field where there's a lot of yak opportunities where he's not really like an isolation type guy like a Mike McCarthy is, where he does a lot of isolation routes. He has a lot of concepts that are layered. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think part of the reason that the Jets offense struggled so much was they didn't have a good yak option, and Quincy Enunwa going down week 1 really hurt them in that regard.
Yeah.
So they could definitely, and I think Adam Gase really likes, like the whole plan. And when Albert Wilson went to the Dolphins, he was pretty effective before he tore his knee up. He's never been the same player since then, but that signing had Adam Gase's hands written all over it. And back before Demaryius Thomas, like when I was watching the Jets film this year, dude, I'm not saying he's a horrible player at this point in his career, but he really lost a step. He used to be able to get yak. He does not have that anymore. He goes down pretty easily. Mm-hmm. But, Adam Gase used to run a lot of screens with Demaryius Thomas back in Denver. And Demaryius Thomas would take them to the house many times. The Jets definitely need a good yak player, and I think that Gase emphasizes that a lot, and we just don't have that at all right now. Well, I guess Perriman could maybe factor in, and I don't know about a new one, but adding.
I'd say if they're missing one thing in their offense that he wants, it's yak, because they have the route runner in Crowder, they have the deep guy in Perriman. I think they're missing the yak guy. Even though I would still prefer Judy, who's less of a yak guy than Lamb and Ruggs, but Judy's underrated in that aspect as well. But I think it's a yak guy that they're truly missing. So if you see like maybe Chenault slipped, then maybe they really do look to add him, depending on his injury concerns and things like that.
Hey Joe, before we move on, if I can, and tell me if you don't want to go super in depth in this topic, I think there's an unfair amount of criticism about Adam Gase's offense.
We talked about it before. Yeah, we talked about that before. He wasn't working with a lot this year.
Yeah, I know, but I feel like people just like his whole tenure in Miami, and I know that we kind of praised it when I went on your show last year, about 9-10 months ago, whatever it was, and we talked about his offense. I'm still watching the film the past couple of days, and I'm not going to act like his offense is great and like he's not making mistakes. Like he really pissed me. They were in the red zone against the Dolphins, and it was a 3rd and 4. And your offense can't move anybody run blocking, and they ran a draw to bell. That pissed me off. Like there are certain questionable calls at time, but in terms of scheme, I don't feel like it's bad. There were players getting open. Mm-hmm. Sometimes Darnold didn't have the time to get it, and sometimes Darnold made boneheaded mistakes or whatever. But I feel like he is scheming guys open.
This is a discussion you cannot have on Twitter.
Yes. No. He's public enemy number 1, and I get it. He is kind of a douchey guy.
For sure.
Let's just be honest. It's me and my wife when we were watching some One Jets Drive, like she just got she never read the reports or the people clowning him on Twitter and stuff, but just got bad vibes about him, like just from the way he's talking and stuff. But I don't think his offense is that bad, and I feel like if you do get players that fit the things that he wants to do, which I think that Douglas is going to be much better at doing that than McCagnon, I think you can see a decently good offense, especially if they get the offensive line solved.
To be quick on this, 1, in Miami, he had Tannehill for like half the games he could have. 2, say what you want about Tannehill. Tannehill's protected by the Tennessee offense. I watched the Tennessee offense when Conklin was there, and there's a lot of guys wide open or getting yak in that offense. So and behind Derrick Henry, so there's a reason they didn't throw the ball in the playoffs a lot.
And Tannehill's shoulder was injured his last year in Miami, not the case last year.
Plenty of time you can go back to TOJ film from Adam Gase and watched me break down his offense, there was plays where I broke it down with Marcus Coleman, who said even if he knew the call, he wouldn't know how, or he knew the play, you can see the play, he wouldn't know what call he would have to defend that play, because that's how good some of the play call was. Now there's problems. Yeah, he's a little bit of a dick. Yeah, he should have that 3rd and 4 draw play. No way should that work. Did I want him to see get Sam Darnold more in play action and bootlegs and things like that? Yes, I would. You
also more in the quick game too.
Yeah.
Darnold is really good at like running an RPO and pulling the ball really quick and just getting it out super quick.
He's a quick release, yeah. So there's some things I would change about him, but people, oh my God, he's the worst offensive coordinator in the league. Look at what Belichick did with Matt Castle and all this stuff. That's a completely different story than Luke Falk and David Fales with the worst offensive line in the league, both run blocking and pass blocking. So I hear a lot of people say how piss poor the offense was, but he had practice squad quarterbacks for a month with no offensive line. So like, I'm not a Adam Gase stan, but he deserves more credit than he does. Now I wish he changed the front office stuff and stop being such a prick. But in terms of scheming, his schemes are good. Like he has plenty of good schemes. So.
Yeah, and like I don't understand. Like some people said, "Oh, Jeremy Bates was better at developing Darnold." I don't see that at all.
Dude, they look at stats. They look at stats and all this.
Yeah,
stuff.
This is coming from a very well-respected person that works on this stuff full time, works in the football world. And I'm not gonna say names or whatever to try to call someone out or whatever. I don't get that. I don't see that. I would love a further explanation on that.
Well respected by
other than the stats.
Well respected by who is my question with that. But
well respected by many.
That's their fault.
I can give you the name too.
If you want. I know you will after the show. So next, but yeah, quickly he gets shit on more than he should. He if he has a good offensive line, I think he could do some work. I don't think his scheme is so bad. It's just not. Next question, Sharman Phillip at Sharmphil 341. What are your thoughts on this corner class, and why do you think it's not a bigger need in fans' minds? That's you, Kyle. I don't know why it's not a bigger need. I think the Jets played a lot of, in terms of fans' minds, they played a lot of bad quarterbacks, so it was disguised. Greg Williams is a great defensive he's a good defensive corner. I wouldn't call him great, so he hit it well. But they need corner. It's a dire need. I don't think it's super top heavy. Like you have, I always blank. I don't know why I cannot remember the top guy's name. I don't know why.
Okuda. Jeff Okuda.
I don't know why I can't remember his name. Jeff Okuda is not going to fall.
Because you're not breaking him down.
Yeah. Henderson.
He's not going out. He's not going to be there at 11.
Henderson could be an option, but he's not going to be for the Jets. And then other than that, I don't really know. I think there are some guys who could be decent in the 3rd or 4th round, just based on what I've seen and heard. But I'm not too sure. It's not a super thin class, I'll say that. So I think they can get a guy in the 3rd, 4th round who I might be happy with. But it's not a bigger need in fans' minds, because fans are super stat driven and broadcast angle driven, where they didn't see how bad the corners were. They don't take into effect that we were playing even guys like Andy Dalton and Ryan Fitzpatrick and whoever Hodges from the Steelers. When they play guys this year, you know, even like Jimmy Garoppolo and Russell Wilson, it's going to show up. I can guarantee it's going to show up. It's a major need right now.
Yeah. I don't think Jimmy Garoppolo is that good, but Russell Wilson.
Neither do I. I just started thinking really of the AFC, the NFC was it West. I think it's the West. So yeah, they play some good quarterbacks this year, but
Kyler Murray though, he's pretty good.
They fleeced the Texans. So
would you? I wanted to ask you this question. Would you take Kyler Murray over Darnold?
No.
Would you take Joe Burrow over Darnold? I would. I definitely would.
Yeah, I think I would.
Yeah, I know he's older. That's the one thing that still kind of gives me some hope about Darnold. I just hope we're not ruining the kid, man.
Like you said, you sort of hear footsteps. That's something you can't get rid of. They need to protect him. People, just get a receiver. He doesn't have a number one. If he doesn't have time to throw the ball, it's going to ruin him. So they need a
yeah, like I feel like he's pretty good at dealing with pressure, but like he was under so much pressure in that, like, I feel like, and this, I could be wrong with this assessment. I feel like I saw him get rattled within specific games. Like in that Patriots game, towards the end of the game, he was so rattled.
Yeah, he was.
I would see him bounce back though in a future week. Like
I
the following week, he bounces back.
It's snowballs for him at times.
That's encouraging.
Yeah,
but you at some point there might be a breaking point for the kid where he just loses confidence. I mean, the kid is ultra confident. Some of the windows he tries to throw to and sometimes does throw into, sometimes for good and for ill, huh?
The Ravens game, the corner of the end zone with.
Oh my God, yeah. I was just watching the Giants game before we got on, and like the one pass that he threw to Crowder on a curl route where he threaded it right in between Jabril Peppers, and Peppers almost got two hands on it, but picked. But it's a perfect throw, though. I mean, there are some throws that are just like, wow. And like, you know, sometimes he throws off balance and makes these nice throws. He's super confident, but you just hope that confidence doesn't go down the drain, because once if it does, could he ever get it back?
It's hard to get
back.
Yeah,
but he is still young, though. I mean, like,
he's younger than Burrow still. So let's give him. I heard people giving up on Darnold. When he has time to throw and guys are getting open, he makes those throws. Like, yeah, he'll make a stupid thing. He'll make a stupid play where he's throwing off his back foot into double coverage and things like that. That he needs to eliminate, or throwing the ball out of bounds, or just take the sack. Like, there's some things he needs to do, but he doesn't play under.
He's not scared. He does not play scared
too much. Like we got to save. But moving on, because we got about a half an hour left. In Joey D, we trust at NYJ_News Empire. Do you think people will start to view? Literally just a question about Sam Darnold. Do you think people will start to view Sam Darnold as a very good young quarterback once he gets some offensive line help or receiver help? Only asking because every other fan base seems to perceive him as a very bad quarterback. Yes, they had the worst offensive line when he played with a good offensive line, like I just said, or a line that blocked. In certain games, he looked very, very good. Look at the game against the Redskins. Look at the game, even against Baltimore, where he didn't have time. He looked good. Look at the game against the Packers, the Texans, the Cowboys. Like, there's plenty of games where you're like, holy crap, this is the future. He just needs to eliminate some of the bad games, and that will come when he has more trust in his offensive line and can step into throws when he has confidence in those guys. When you're consistently getting hit, it's hard to produce. So I think yes, if they get that help. Because guys are stat driven. Oh, look at his stats. Oh my God, stats.
And even going back to USC, I mean, like he didn't have great coaching there. Like he's still like he hasn't even been playing the position for that long. And when he started playing as a sophomore in high school,
yeah, because he
wasn't one of these kids that was raised, you know, comes from super wealthy parents like Josh Rosen, and is playing quarterback from the moment that, you know, that they could basically throw the ball. That wasn't him.
Yeah.
Even though I guess his parents were, you know, decently affluent. I don't know, but that's not the point. The point is he hasn't been playing quarterback for that long. Anyway, I think fans from other fan bases are right to perceive him as not such a great quarterback, because at this point, he's not. He just isn't. Let's be real, Jets fans. I know a lot of Jets fans will hate me for saying that. He needs a lot of work.
I hate you for saying that.
His footwork is still really sloppy. I got to be honest.
Steps in the bucket all the time.
It's really disgusting at times.
Yeah.
And he knows that he has this innate ability, which other guys just don't have, where he can throw from a muddy pocket, where he keeps his feet. He keeps both feet on the ground and will throw, not even pointing in the direction. And somehow the ball still gets there sometimes, but other times it doesn't. He knows he can do that, but sometimes he relies on it too much.
Yeah.
He needs to work on that. And, you know, sometimes his reading of coverages is a little off too sometimes. Like, he does throw with anticipation. He throws with confidence. But he needs to get better at reading defenses too. And luckily, he's still young, and I think he works hard at his craft. So that's something that can develop as well.
If you were to tell me right now that the Jets for the next 2 years have a decent offensive line, decent weapons, I think people start to view him as a top 15, top 10 quarterback. That's just my opinion. I have a lot of faith in the kid.
You thought this year that he could be in the top 10 discussion, which I was not very confident in that.
He needs help.
Kid needs a lot of help.
He needs a lot of help.
Please, Joe Douglas, help this kid, please.
Listen, Russell Wilson can do it. Russell Wilson's a different story than Sam Darnold coming out of USC. You know, different story. So moving on. I know you might have commented, but Damon at Quicker Than Fast. Hopefully I'm not too late, Joe. If the Jets, which you're not, if the Jets take one of the big 4 offensive linemen, do you think wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr. and Van Jefferson are good fits for Adam Gase' offensive scheme? That's for you, Kyle.
Sure, why not? I mean,
yeah, we gotta dive more into him. Pittman, deep ball guy, could be a red zone guy. You said you liked him. Van Jefferson's a good route runner. Adam Gase values good route runners and guys who are where they're expected to be when they're expected to be there. So I would say
I haven't watched a lot of Van Jefferson. I saw him when they faced LSU. He had a really sweet move on the LSU cornerback in the end zone to score a touchdown. Really smooth.
My only worry isn't he's like 23, 24 years old and he's had some injury concerns.
He's gonna be 24 in July.
So that's
that right there, in my opinion. But I'd be hesitant on taking him in the second round, maybe the third.
All right, next question. The real stats at the real stats. Is your pick Judy at 11 if he's there? Again, some of these topics are
You could just skip over that one.
yeah. Well, oh, we're recording, by the way. You could just.
I'm just saying we've answered that though.
Yeah,
we are recording.
No, if the top 4 tackles aren't there, yes. If they are there, no. This kind of comes into the Adam Gates thing. I'll throw this to you. Tyson Roush, I think his name is. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, that's how you pronounce it.
Okay, so T Roush at 21. Can you explain how it's possible that I could be hammered in the upper deck and still identify Adam Gase's play calls before they happen? Kyle, you want to answer that?
Tyson, I think you're just being a little unfair about his offense. Sometimes it was a little predictable, but I think if you get him some of the players that he wants, he's a stubborn a-hole, and he wants certain players to do certain things. And I don't think even in Miami they didn't do a good job of it. And thus far with McCagnon, he wants guys who are going to do things the way he wants, and he's looking for certain players in certain molds. I don't know if Joe Douglas is going to go full on and try to do that for Adam Gase. I don't see why he would. So maybe it won't work out. But I think if you give him players, if you get him better players overall and players that, kind of fit more into what he wants to do, you'll see his offense be better.
I think, like we talked about, he was hamstrung to a certain extent. Listen, he's not the best guy in the world, but let's just call him an average offensive play caller. You have an average offensive play call. The talent he did on the offensive line, it's not gonna be pretty. So yeah, they might have to throw the ball on screens and short routes when they only have 2 seconds to throw the ball without the quarterback getting killed. So that's why he might have been able to predict it. But again, I think the whole thing's overblown, to be completely honest. So
and hold some hope and look at in terms of game planning strategies. Just look at his opening drives in comparison to previous Jets years. Mm-hmm. How many opening drive touchdowns did we have? We had we went 30 games in a row without an opening drive touchdown.
And we had 6 or 7 in a row.
Yeah, the dude can game plan and stuff. I mean, I know he could be better.
I think he needs to adjust.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 17, Joe at Jets Show 73. Again, there are a lot of repeated stuff because it's the draft. What second or third round cornerback would you be most excited about the Jets picking? Yeah, the only guys I've seen who are okay, they're supposed to be, either a late first or an early second, or a guy who's supposed to be in a late second round pick that I'd be excited in the third round. Jeff Gladney from TCU is a guy I've heard about a little bit. Damon Arnett is from Ohio State. I've seen a highlight film of him. He looked pretty solid, and that's about it. I'm not going to answer a lot of those questions because I don't watch.
Without saying anything about Gladney as a player, I actually haven't watched him. I know PFF's supposedly high on him, but what I really care about is God, why am I forgetting his name right now? The head coach for TCU is one of the best defensive minds in all college football. So to play for him in his defense, that says something. So I think at the very least you'll be getting a smart player.
Okay.
When you watch the head coach when they do the coaches film things, when they break down the BCS championship games and the playoff games, he's super insightful, super insightful.
Yeah. Next one. We got 3 more left. Joe at Jets Joe 73 again. He just said redundancies in the wide receiver core. Specifically, I was thinking, I guess Justin Jefferson and Edwards, if they were to pick those 2 guys, and then Pittman or Jefferson and Edwards. So I think he's just talking about a lot of bigger body type guys. Are you worried about, I guess, the mid-round guys having a lot of redundant skill sets, or does it make more sense to get better players overall with the lack of talent in the group, he says?
Well, Justin Jefferson's not going to be there in the second round.
No, he's not. There's no way.
There is no shot of that. And then what was the other part of the question? I know you mentioned some other names. He's
basically asking, are you worried about the redundancy in the wide receiver types in the draft? And would you kind of avoid, okay, let's say you pick a Van Jefferson in the 4th and you already picked Pittman in the 2nd. Are you going to avoid that? Or you think it's just the best to just get the most talented players minus redundancy?
I think to an extent, I mean, that matters. You don't want to draft if let's say you're spending a 2nd round pick and a 3rd round pick, do you want to draft the guy with the same exact skill set? No, but would you want to draft a much inferior receiver because of that? No. overall, the way you grade a player matters much more than diversity of their skill set. But I mean, if you're in that position, you'd probably just go to a completely different position group anyway. I don't know if that answers the question at all. What do you want to say?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I'm not going to take a much less talented player. It's so fluid, and I don't really know enough about these guys to comment. Okay, well, yeah, maybe Jefferson is a bigger guy, but maybe he's a much better route runner. So you get open, in the structure of that offense. Better than a guy like Brian Edwards could, who might be a little bit more of a jump ball guy. So just because they're tall doesn't mean they're the same skill sets. So like I don't really have to dive into it, but just get talent where you can, and don't reach for okay. Well, I already got Pittman in the second. I shouldn't take a Jefferson in the fourth because they're both tall. Like they'll figure it out. I wouldn't worry about that. Next question. It's I'm not going to say his full name, but it's Sam Darnold, the F word. I'm not going to. So. That's one of the words I try to avoid. There's very few words I try to avoid. That's one of them on the show because I don't know who's listening with their kids. At Munkerson is his name. Joe, if you could have your ideal dream draft of any prospect buy round that are expected to go in reasonably placed, no Chase Young at 11, for example, how would your first 4 picks go? We already did this, right?
Maybe, but I know you put out a 7-round mock draft, so you could just read that.
Yeah, no, the first 2 rounds, it's really like wills, and then having like Mims or Rager fall to 2. And then, like I said, in the 3rd and 4th round, a combination of receiver, corner, interior offensive line, edge. That's all I want.
I heard something encouraging. Like apparently teams are not as high on Mims as people in the draft Twitter world are. So he could maybe potentially slide. He looked like he was good after his combine and what he did at the Senior Bowl. It looked like he was a lock for round 1, but maybe because of a stacked receiver class and apparently for whatever reason, I don't know. In my mind, when I watch that guy, like I think he's got translatable skills to the NFL, and he tested really well athletically too. No off the field issues. I know he's 23, but I could see him really succeeding in the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he'll be there at pick 48, but then again, I didn't think DK Metcalf would be there at pick 60 something last year.
Exactly.
So
I also didn't think
48,
that, what's his name? Hakeem Butler was going to be there in like the 5th round or 6th, whatever the hell he was.
That was strange, but he didn't really.
Again, there's a lot of stuff we don't see behind the scenes. What if they interviewed, what if I loved, we loved Mims, and then they interviewed him and he had no idea about coverages and things like that, So there's always questions about that stuff behind the scenes. What is his family life like? There's a lot of things that come into effect. The next question, Mets, Jets, Knicks at Mets, Jets, Knicks. Again, this is the same question. Would you take any of the top 4 offensive tackles if available for the Jets at 11 over a wide receiver? If not, which OT would you pass on for Judy, Ruggs, Lamb? None. That's my answer. I'm taking an offensive tackle all day. I would love to take Judy in a world where the Jets didn't have a dire needed offensive line. That's not the case. So I'm taking an offensive lineman.
Yeah, I think I'm with you too. So I am. We've talked about that too.
Yeah, that's it, Kyle. I guess the last question, Joe at Joe RB31. Kyle, when are you getting back into the podcasting game?
What, you asked that?
Yeah, I did. I snuck in a question.
I don't know that that's happening, man.
No,
but
I know.
I like doing it in spots and stuff here and there. And
yeah, no,
I will say this whole COVID stuff and like having me work from home, I've been able to watch a little bit more film as of lately. So I've been happy with that aspect of this whole ordeal. So that's cool. So yeah, I'd like to come back on maybe in like a month or something like that after you're done breaking down a lot of the Jets draft class, and maybe we can talk more if you want.
Yeah, for sure. Kyle will be back. I know he'll be back to do the top 25 players of the Jets roster. We do that every year, so I know he'll be back on for that. Maybe we'll do the mailbag and break down some of the prospects, whatever that I'm doing.
It's much more fun to do that when you know it's a certainty rather than what ifs, which the draft at this point is a what if.
Like, I know. I would I think last year, Quinnen Williams, got a couple hundred views before they drafted them. They drafted them and went shot past 1,000. It's yeah, that happens. So I put out Chase on, I said it when I was in the podcast. I'm like, nobody's going to watch this. So I'm doing a podcast for another team if they find them on YouTube. That's about it. So
I got to be honest, I didn't watch your Chase on thing. Yeah, that's the only one I didn't watch.
Okay. Well, hopefully you're bored.
Not to say that I wouldn't, especially if they draft him. But
yeah. So Kyle, any last words before we jump off?
No, it was fun, and like to do it again and keep up the good work and have fun on this next podcast that you're going to.
Yep.
And stay safe. Stay safe.
Yeah,
I know
for
you
sure.
are. I know you are.
Yeah. Jets Talk 24/7. I'll be on that after this even posts. I won't be able to post this before I get on that show. So Jets Talk 24/7. It's like a mailbag type of thing, I guess, for 2 hours as well that I'm jumping on. Kyle, I appreciate you coming on. The next time I see everybody breaking down film or talking, podcasting, whatever, minus the YouTube show I'm about to do, the Jets will have their draft done. So it should be exciting, and we'll have Kyle back on soon. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and talk to you a little bit.